Chapter 1090. Hearing that Ji Wuxiang actually had designs on the scarlet lunar beast, Tang Zheng's eyes flashed with a cold light as his killing intent soared to the sky. Roar! Xiao Bai roared as his four hooves flew as if he was walking on the wind. In the blink of an eye, he was in front of Ji Wuxiang, his sharp claws directly grabbing at Ji Wuxiang. Evil creature, I didn't kill you just now, now die. Ji Wuxiang's four eyes widened as his aura changed greatly. He pointed his finger in the air and the qi of heaven and earth suddenly changed. Tang Zheng's head trembled as he felt the qi of the Go Club undergo an earth-shattering change. The originally calm air violently fluctuated as it gathered towards Xiao Bai from all directions. Xiao Bai, be careful. Tang Zheng hurriedly warned. Boom! With a loud sound, an invisible force hit Xiao Bai and sent Xiao Bai flying through the air. Ji Wuxiang's lips curled into a cold smile as he said complacently, "This is the Go Club, my territory. I am the ruler, killing you is as easy as flipping my hand." As soon as his voice fell, the surrounding Go players began to move. These seemingly powerless people's auras also underwent an earth-shattering change. It did not mean that they had immediately become experts, but in their movements, it was as if they were two different people. Tang Zheng slightly narrowed his eyes and said meaningfully, "In this Go Club, not only did you, Ji Wuxiang, hide deeply, even your Go players are not to be outdone." Ji Wuxiang coldly laughed. "Do you really think that the flying guillotine is the most powerful force in my Azure Dragon Hall?" Wrong. Completely wrong. That was New Era's invention. Although it was very powerful at the time, the times have changed and the flying guillotine is no longer able to adapt. I am at the forefront of this era, so of course I have to increase the fighting strength of the Azure Dragon Hall. The Go players that I have trained are the greatest results. Ji Wuxiang's fingers moved, and in the end, he pointed at the sky and roared, "Activate the celestial chess, the power of the stars, heed my command." The chess player's footsteps became faster and faster, and his figure actually became blurry. In an instant, the power of the stars descended from the 9 heavens. Tang Zheng could feel it very deeply. This power of the stars was much stronger than the one he had summoned when he activated the celestial chest during the day. Obviously, they had been holding back during the day. The mighty power of the stars permeated the small Go Club like seawater, causing Tang Zheng's movements to become much slower. A sword light flashed, and the battle soul sword appeared. It flew out of Tang Zheng's hand, splitting apart the vast and mighty power of the stars, and flew straight towards Ji Wuxiang. Ji Wuxiang did not move. He smiled as he watched the war soul sword get closer and closer, his eyes filled with disdain and ridicule. Seal. Ji Wuxiang uttered a simple syllable. The astral energy suddenly shrank and gathered in front of him, forming an invisible and sturdy wall. Boom! The war soul sword stopped in front of the invisible wall, unable to advance any further. Break! A voice burst out from Ji Wuxiang's mouth. The war soul sword flashed and flew out, directly flying out of the Go Club. Tang Zheng's gaze turned cold, and he shouted, "Come back!" With a wave of his hand, an invisible force pulled the war soul sword, and the war soul sword flew back with a "so" sound. In addition, there was another sound that was as fast as the wind, like a meteorite from outer space. It was a ball of flame, but this ball of flame was a little bigger, and in an instant, it enveloped the entire Go Club. This was Xiao Bai's counterattack. After it was sent flying, it did not suffer any serious injuries. Instead, it aroused its ferocious nature. It bared its teeth, opened its small mouth, and spat out fire as it flew over. Immediately, the Go Club turned into a sea of fire. The buildings crackled and popped, and then they were quickly evaporated by the flames. Xiao Bai had evolved, and the power of the flames had obviously increased. The ordinary buildings had almost no resistance to the power of the flames. Seeing this, Ji Wuxiang flew into a rage and shouted, "Rain!" Whoosh! The rain poured down. The rain was formed by the condensation of the astral energy in the air. It was not real rain, but the effect was the same. In an instant it was as if a floodgate had been opened, and it immediately filled the small Go Club. The strangest thing was that the area covered by the rain was only the Go Club. The outside of the Go Club was still as dry as before. It was as if this part of the world and the outside were two different worlds. Tang Zheng looked at this scene in amazement. This was obviously Ji Wuxiang's new move, and it had not been like this before. A thought immediately appeared in his mind: call the wind and summon the rain. This was the legendary method of the gods. Of course, he also understood that this was the effect of the astral energy. In fact, he could also control the astral energy, and because of the ancient Clear Heaven Scroll, his control of the astral energy was not weaker than Ji Wuxiang's. Therefore, he thought of something and activated the ancient Clear Heaven Scroll. He spread his fingers and tried to communicate with the astral energy. Huh! Suddenly, his eyes trembled and widened in disbelief. What was going on? Why was there no reaction from the astral energy? Seeing his reaction, Ji Wuxiang laughed maniacally. Ha ha ha, Tang Zheng, you overestimate yourself. You still want to control the astral energy? Seeing that Ji Wuxiang had seen through his intentions, Tang Zheng had an idea and asked suspiciously, did you do something? Ji Wuxiang smiled mysteriously. Of course, do you really think I will let you control the astral energy? I am not a fool who will do anything for you. The celestial chess will listen to my orders. Other than me, don't even think of touching the astral energy. Tang Zheng suddenly realized that he was absorbing the astral energy because Ji Wuxiang needed his help. Therefore, he deliberately did not control the celestial chess and blocked off the astral energy. Now that there was no need to rely on Tang Zheng, of course he would not let Tang Zheng take advantage of him. Especially since Tang Zheng's control of the astral energy was above Ji Wuxiang's, this made Ji Wuxiang very wary. If he allowed Tang Zheng to control the astral energy, it would be like a guest stealing the master's thunder. Ji Wuxiang would not watch as the result of his decades of planning was given away. Indeed, Tang Zheng's control of the astral energy was far better than Ji Wuxiang's, especially in the aspect of handling the details. Ji Wuxiang could barely control the astral energy to do some big things. As for things like guiding the astral energy to pour into every part of the celestial chess, which involved many details, Ji Wuxiang could not do anything about it. This was why he needed to rely on Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng's expression changed abruptly. It seemed like his good days of absorbing the astral energy had come to an end, and he did not count on it anymore. In that case, he might as well directly destroy the celestial chess this time. That way, wouldn't Ji Wuxiang be unable to get what he wanted? In the past few days, he had understood that the celestial chess not only relied on the chess players, but also the chess games in the hall were an important part of it. If he destroyed these chess games, wouldn't he be able to destroy the celestial chess? Even if he couldn't kill Ji Wuxiang, he could still give him a fatal blow, especially if he could destroy his crazy plan. This was the most important thing. With a thought, the heaven-shocking bow and the sun-shooting arrow appeared in Tang Zheng's hands, aiming at the chess game in the hall from afar. Amidst the fire, the chess club's buildings were all burned to the ground, turning into ashes. Only the few chess games not far away remained standing, without any damage, which made it even more unusual. Tang Zheng firmly locked onto the chess game, and roared, "Break!" Whiz! The sun-shooting arrow turned into a ray of light and shot over in an instant. Ji Wuxiang immediately saw through Tang Zheng's intentions, his expression changed, and he bellowed, "Stop!" The mighty power of the stars instantly converged in front of the shooting sun arrow from all directions, blocking its attack. Tang Zheng's eyes flashed, and the corner of his mouth curled up into a faint smile, and he shouted coldly, "Disperse!" The shooting sun arrow shone brightly. 1 turned into 2, 2 turned into 4, and finally became 9 shooting sun arrows. All of this happened in the blink of an eye. Even if Ji Wuxiang tried to stop it, it was too late. The 9 sun-shooting arrows could be combined into one, and could even be separated on their own, all depending on Tang Zheng's thought. Ji Wuxiang obviously did not expect this. When he saw it, he was in a panic, and it was too late to stop it. Other than one sun shooting arrow being blocked, the other 8 sun shooting arrows were shot in 8 different directions towards the numerous chess games. Boom! 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 The chess game could block the fire, but it couldn't block the sun shooting arrows. With a series of explosions, the chess game turned into pieces of rubble, and smoke and dust flew everywhere. The black and white chess pieces scattered all over the ground, crackling like rain hitting banana leaves. The chi activity in the world changed, and the astral energy disappeared completely. The chess players all seemed to have suffered a heavy blow, and their faces were pale. Some of them even had blood flowing out from the corner of their mouths. Ji Wuxiang's veins popped out on his face, and he roared like a ferocious ghost, "Tang Zheng, what have you done?" Looking at Ji Wuxiang's ferocious appearance, Tang Zheng laughed instead. "Ji Wuxiang, didn't you say you wanted to use the celestial chess to unify the world? Now that I have destroyed the celestial chess, let's see what ability you have to unify the world. I was deceived by you, and I helped you by channeling the astral energy into the celestial chess. Now that I have destroyed it, it can be considered as me taking responsibility for my own actions." Ji Wuxiang's voice became hysterical, and it was like a ghost's wail and wolf's howl coming from the depths of hell. It was eerie and terrifying, and it made one's heart tremble. But in Tang Zheng's ears, this voice contained too much anger. Instead, it was like heavenly music coming from the 9th heaven, incomparably pleasant to the ear. "Tang Zheng, I will tear you into pieces and cast you into the 18th level of hell." Ji Wuxiang roared like a madman, and his whole body trembled with anger. Tang Zheng sneered, and muttered in his heart, "I have seen the 18th level of hell a long time ago. It is useless for you to use this to scare me." But he also knew that because the celestial chess was destroyed, Ji Wuxiang would definitely counterattack even more crazily, and his attack would probably not be inferior to the attack just now. Therefore, he secretly made preparations to welcome Ji Wuxiang's stormy attacks. Ji Wuxiang walked to the ruins of the chess game, and looked at the ruins scattered all over the ground, and the particularly conspicuous black and white chess pieces. The corners of his mouth kept twitching, and then, he suddenly raised his head and stared at Tang Zheng from afar. Chapter 1091. Facing Ji Wuxiang's hateful gaze, Tang Zheng remained calm and indifferent. "Tang Zheng, do you really think that without these chess pieces, you can really ruin my grand plan?" Ji Wuxiang asked gloomily. Tang Zheng replied with a question, "Then what else do you have now?" Ji Wuxiang began to move. He walked step by step towards Tang Zheng from the ruins. Without saying a word, he spread out his 10 fingers and suddenly clenched them into fists. He roared, "Rise!" The ground began to tremble with a buzzing sound. The dust on the ground flew up, and even the pieces of the chess pieces flew up and rapidly gathered together. Tang Zheng's eyes widened as he looked at this scene in disbelief. He asked, "What are you doing?" Ji Wuxiang laughed. "It's true that you destroyed my celestial chess pieces, but if the celestial chess pieces were so easily destroyed, would it still be the celestial chess pieces? How could the results of my painstaking efforts over so many years be destroyed so easily?" As he spoke, the scene in front of him changed drastically. The pieces actually gathered together quickly, and the chess pieces were restored. Shocking. Tang Zheng was too shocked. This was almost the same as bringing someone back from the dead. "How did you do it?" Ji Wuxiang laughed loudly. "This is the miraculous effect of the power of the stars. How much do you know about the power of the stars? How can it compare to my research on the power of the stars?" Tang Zheng indeed did not know much about the power of the stars. When he saw this scene, he was deeply shocked by the power of the stars. The power of the stars was a higher level existence than the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Not only was it more powerful in terms of energy, but it also had many miraculous properties that the spiritual energy of heaven and earth did not have. From the looks of it, his plan to destroy the chess pieces did not succeed. The celestial chess pieces were still as before, and Ji Wuxiang's crazy plan could still be carried out. Tang Zheng's expression became extremely gloomy. He knew that this was not good. Ji Wuxiang walked towards Tang Zheng with a sinister smile on his face. Although he made it sound easy, it wasn't the case at all. He could indeed control the power of the stars to restore the chessboard, but the consumption was too great. After this, his power had been greatly reduced, which was why he was so angry earlier. What Tang Zheng didn't know was that when he saw the opponent's imposing manner, his heart shivered and he subconsciously took 2 steps back. In the end, he couldn't retreat anymore, so he said sternly, "Since you want to kill me, then come." With that, the heaven-shocking bow, shooting sun arrows and war soul sword appeared at the same time, aiming at Ji Wuxiang. With a heaven-shaking roar, the 2 holy artifacts launched a powerful attack at the same time. Whoosh! With 2 sounds of breaking through the air, the shooting sun arrow and war soul sword flew in front of Ji Wuxiang at the same time. A cold light flashed in Ji Wuxiang's eyes as he snorted disdainfully, "You overestimate yourself." With a point of his finger, the power of the stars between heaven and earth was used by him, advancing side by side. Boom! Boom! With 2 loud sounds, the power of the stars struck the shooting sun arrow and the war soul sword, causing the 2 divine weapons to fall to the ground with a clatter. Ji Wuxiang was a 9th-grade martial king, and his cultivation was originally higher than Tang Zheng's. Although he had used up a lot of energy just now, he was still better than Tang Zheng. Roar! Xiao Bai roared and rushed forward again. A ball of flame shot out from her small mouth towards Ji Wuxiang. Ji Wuxiang quickly dodged, staring straight at Tang Zheng and Xiao Bai. He gritted his teeth and said, "I don't have time to play with you, go and die." Thump. Ma. What? 3 simple syllables came out of Ji Wuxiang's mouth. When Tang Zheng and Xiao Bai heard this, they shouted at the same time, "Be careful." 6 words. This was one of the attacks that Tang Zheng feared the most. He and Xiao Bai's bodies were filled with endless killing intent, but they could not do what Ling Er and Li Xiaotian did. Their hearts were as calm as still water, so they would definitely be affected. They had already discovered that their speed had slowed down and the air seemed to have frozen. They could clearly feel the power of the stars converging from all directions, but they were powerless. Boom! Tang Zheng and Xiao Bai flew out at the same time, spitting out blood from their mouths. Xiao Bai's fiery red eyes dimmed and Tang Zheng's face instantly turned pale. Ji Wuxiang proudly gave a cold smile, "Now do you understand the difference between us?" Tang Zheng wiped away the blood and felt his body stiffen uncontrollably. He coldly said, "Ji Wuxiang, is this all you've got? This skill is enough to kill you." When his voice fell, Ji Wuxiang opened his mouth again, and 3 simple syllables jumped out of his mouth in succession. Pa. Me. E. 6 words. 6 words poured out like a thunderclap. When the 6 words were completely blurted out, his aura underwent an earth-shattering change. Tang Zheng and Xiao Bai coincidentally couldn't control themselves and turned into puppets, unable to move. Tang Zheng inwardly sighed, this time he was doomed. Not only did Ji Wuxiang have the 6-word maxim, he also had the help of the heavenly chess. Even though Tang Zheng's power increased by a lot and he also had Little White's help, he was still slightly inferior to the 6-word maxim. When Ji Wuxiang used the non-phase method before, he couldn't move. But now, with the help of the celestial chess, he could control the power of the stars to attack. The power of the stars was not affected by the non-phase method and could freely shuttle between this side of the world. Therefore, the power of the stars was like thousands of sharp arrows, whizzing toward Tang Zheng and Xiao Bai. Bang! Bang! The 2 men took another blow and spat out 2 mouthfuls of blood, but they were powerless and had no way to resist. They were like wooden blocks, letting Ji Wuxiang attack them non-stop. Suddenly, he felt a strong evil aura spread out, and his heart trembled. Ji Wuxiang's face suddenly changed. He narrowed his eyes and asked, "What's going on?" The non-phase method was specialized in restraining evil aura, especially people with evil aura. Under the attack of the non-phase method, they couldn't move, just like puppets. The evil aura couldn't flow freely in the attack range of the non-phase method, but this evil aura spread out on its own. Such an abnormal thing made Ji Wuxiang feel like he was facing a great enemy. Tang Jing moved his head and understood what was going on. This was the evil aura of the Shura in the Sumra world. Usually, the Shura had been suppressed by him with the Kitagarbha Sutra. Whenever the Shura was about to get out of control, he would recite the Kitagarbha Sutra, and the Shura would immediately calm down. At this moment, the Shura was obviously revived, but he was seriously injured and his life was hanging by a thread. There was no way to recite the Kitagarbha Sutra to suppress the Shura. Therefore, the Shura's murderous aura spread directly from the Sumra world. It could be seen how powerful the Shura was. Tang Zheng was faintly worried. The Shura was so strong, without the suppression of the Kitagarbha Sutra, what if he broke through the restriction of the Sumra world? Could the Shura break through the restriction of the Sumra world? Tang Zheng didn't know the answer. Seeing Tang Zheng silent, Ji Wuxiang flew into a rage. Tang Zheng, what are you doing? There was a trace of panic in his words. Roar. Suddenly, a roar sounded. This sound came out of nowhere, like a sudden clap of thunder, making people tremble. This sound was full of endless evil aura. Where did this sound come from? Ji Wuxiang shouted. The next second, he firmly locked onto Tang Zheng, because this sound clearly came from Tang Zheng, but it was obviously not Tang Zheng's voice, and also not Xiao Bai's roar. Ji Wuxiang suddenly had an ominous premonition in his heart. Ji Wuxiang, didn't you boast that the celestial chess and non-phase method are very powerful, and that no one can break through them? Tang Zheng thoughtfully asked. Of course. Ji Wuxiang stood proudly and raised his head high. I'm afraid that may not be the case. Tang Zheng had a flash of inspiration and an idea. Anyway, Ji Wuxiang has completely controlled the situation. If there is no unexpected situation, Xiao Bai and I can't escape from his evil hands. Since the Shura has revived, why don't we let the Shura deal with Ji Wuxiang and see if the arrogant Ji Wuxiang has the ability to deal with the Shura? Of course, Ji Wuxiang couldn't succeed. Dizang of Goguryeo spent a lot of effort to suppress the Shura. Ji Wuxiang didn't have the Ksitagarbha Sutra, so how could he suppress the Shura? With this thought in mind, he no longer deliberately suppressed the Azura. With a shift of his mind, the Sumra world opened up. A terrifying murderous aura soared into the sky, enveloping the entire Go Club in an instant. It even overshadowed the mighty power of the stars. Ji Wuxiang's face completely changed. He realized that something was wrong and shouted to stop. Tang Zheng, what are you doing? Stop it. Tang Zheng revealed a mysterious smile and said, Ji Wuxiang, are you afraid? What do I have to be afraid of? What ability do you have to make me afraid? Ji Wuxiang raised his head like a proud peacock. Hee, is that so? Tang Zheng sneered. Suddenly, his face changed and he shouted, Shura, come out. His voice fell, and the evil aura soared to the sky, almost suffocating people. Heaven and earth changed color, and the wind and clouds above the Go Club changed. A cloud floated in from somewhere, blocking all the starlight and moonlight. A breathtaking aura spread out, and the Go players cried out in alarm and staggered back. Ji Wuxiang's face also became gloomy. He glanced at the sky and then stared at Tang Zheng. Roar. With a roar, a huge figure appeared out of thin air and landed in the Go Club, looking down at the crowd. Exclamations came one after another, and the Go players were really frightened. Even Ji Wuxiang took a step back and looked at the scene incredulously. Shura, what is Shura? Ji Wuxiang really didn't know Shura, and he knew nothing about the ghost realm. But from the aura that Shura exuded, he felt it clearly. This was a strong person, very strong, and he had never seen such a strong person before. What is Shura? You will see it in a while. Tang Zheng said coldly. Impossible, my non-phase method is particularly effective in restraining evil aura. His evil aura is so strong, how can he not be affected by non-phase method? Ji Wuxiang asked. Tang Zheng was also surprised that Shura could not be affected by non-phase method. This was an unexpected surprise, and it could give Ji Wuxiang a fatal blow. Chapter 1092. Ji Wuxiang stared at this scene in disbelief. This was completely beyond his understanding, and his eyeballs were about to pop out of their sockets. Whoosh! The Azura saber suddenly appeared and danced in the air. The aura between heaven and earth was shattered by this saber strike. Seeing the Azura saber slashing toward him, Ji Wuxiang's soul, which was about to leave his body, finally returned to his body. His entire body trembled as if he was facing a great enemy. He quickly jumped to the side and narrowly dodged this attack. Kacha! A huge gully appeared in the ground. It was so deep that the bottom could not be seen. It was as if it led to the core of the earth, and black gas was continuously emitting from it. Ji Wuxiang could escape, but there was one chess player who did not have this ability. He did not even have the slightest chance to escape. He was instantly cleaved into two halves from head to toe by the Azura saber. Blood splattered everywhere, and the scene was extremely horrifying. Ji Wuxiang's eyes widened as he roared furiously, "You actually killed my chess player." The chess player was a non-renewable resource. It was the result of many years of nurturing by Ji Wuxiang, and it was extremely important to him and the heavenly chess. Seeing his chess player die under the Azura saber, and Ji Wuxiang was powerless to do anything, one could imagine the fury in his heart. The corners of Tang Zheng's lips curled up. He thought to himself, although I destroyed your chess game, you can still use the power of the stars to rebuild it. Now that the Azura has killed your chess player, do you think you can still revive the dead? Obviously, Ji Wuxiang did not have this ability. Thus, one could imagine the monstrous fury in his heart. It was as if it was going to erupt from every pore of his body. Ji Wuxiang leaped up and charged toward Tang Zheng. He roared, "Tang Zheng, you must die." Tang Zheng did not counterattack at all. This was because the Azura had already made the first move. The Azura did not listen to anyone's orders. When he stood between Ji Wuxiang and Tang Zheng, and Ji Wuxiang was about to counterattack, he naturally treated Ji Wuxiang as his primary target. Thus, he waved the Azura saber without hesitation. With a whoosh, the Azura saber drew a black arc in the air and instantly attacked Ji Wuxiang. This time, Ji Wuxiang did not dodge. Instead, he was ready to counterattack. He chanted the 6 words and activated the power of the stars at the same time. The 6-word proverb instantly leaped out of his mouth. An invisible force bound the Shura, attempting to imprison him. However, the Shura's murderous aura was too strong. The 6-word proverb did not have the effect it should have. The attack collapsed and disappeared without a trace. In addition, the power of the stars descended from the sky. It even penetrated the layers of black clouds and enveloped the Azura. The Azura immediately felt uncomfortable. The power of the stars was indeed extraordinary. Not only did it not stop the Azura, but it also aroused his ferocity. A cold light suddenly appeared in his eyes. It was as if it was solid and shot out from his huge eye sockets. He stomped his foot fiercely. Bang! The earth trembled as if there was an earthquake. The ruins on the ground were shaken and flew high into the air. Whoosh! The Azura saber danced, forming a dazzling black saber light. The ruins were enveloped by this saber light. It was like an invincible divine weapon. In the blink of an eye, it attacked Ji Wuxiang. Ji Wuxiang's face paled. Under the pressure of the Azura saber, he could feel the threat of death. It was more realistic than any other time he had felt it. This time, he did not expect to counterattack. Instead, he tried to escape. However, the Azura did not give him the chance. The Azura saber chopped down on his head. Blood seemed to be about to appear. However, blood still did not appear. This was because Ji Wuxiang raised his hands and grabbed the Azura saber. With his cultivation, it was impossible for him to grab the Azura saber like this. He gathered the power of countless stars in his hands. Therefore, He used all his strength to barely grab the Azura saber. However, was this the end? Of course not. He had underestimated the Azura's strength. Ji Wuxiang's huge eyes stared at Ji Wuxiang. He felt as if he was being stared at by the god of death. A gloomy aura of death appeared in his heart. The Azura looked at Ji Wuxiang with contempt. It was as if he was saying that he dared to fight him one-on-one with such little strength. Was he not courting death? A cold light flashed in his eyes. Killing intent filled the air. The Azura saber flickered. Its power increased greatly. It was even more terrifying than the weight of Mount Tai. In an instant, the power was transmitted from the saber to Ji Wuxiang's palms. Pa, pa. Two sounds of bones breaking rang out. Ji Wuxiang's palms immediately drooped down. They were soft. They had actually been broken by the power transmitted from the Azura saber. Ji Wuxiang's muscles and bones were extremely strong. This was beyond doubt. However, facing the Azura's attack, Ji Wuxiang could not withstand the slight increase in power. This was enough to show the difference in strength between the two sides. It was practically the difference between heaven and earth. Ji Wuxiang also realized this. He did not care about the pain. He cried out inwardly and staggered backwards. It was as if he had turned from a mighty and unyielding general into a fleeing stray dog. He was unwilling to give up. He stared at the Azura intently as if he wanted to see through him. But after looking for a moment, he could not find any clues at all. In his knowledge, there had never been a Azura. After all, the Azura in the world of spirits and souls was only known to a few people at the top of the hierarchy. Not to mention the people's understanding of the Azura. Tang Zheng knew how powerful the Azura was. Seeing that the Azura had firmly locked onto Ji Wuxiang, he was secretly delighted. He and Xiaobai retreated far away. However, he did not take the opportunity to escape. In that case, it would be harder for Ji Wuxiang to catch up with him. But he did not leave. Because he knew how powerful the Azura was. Initially, Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva had left the Azura under his care and had even passed on the Ksitigarbha Sutra to him. He had also repeatedly warned him, so Tang Zheng understood that he definitely could not sit idly by and do nothing towards the Azura. If he were to leave, the Azura would leave and commit a grave mistake. He did not have the qualifications or ability to deal with this matter. Therefore, he must stay and watch Azura's every move closely. Ji Wuxiang saw that Tang Zheng did not escape. Instead, he was watching him fight with the Azura with interest. The flame in his heart was even more indescribable, as if it was going to ignite him. Tang Zheng, you have a helper, but you still want to see me make a fool of myself. I won't let you do as you wish. Ji Wuxiang cursed hysterically in his heart. Obviously, he had guessed Tang Zheng's real purpose wrong. But it was no longer important. Because he had escaped from the Azura's Azura sword in a panic, there was no extra chance to fight back against Tang Zheng. Ji Wuxiang was like a stray dog, dodging left and right. As for the effect of the non-phase method, it had long been destroyed by the Azura. The other Go players also moved. They took large strides and tried to attract more star power to come down, so as to completely defeat the Azura. The Azura shook his head. He did not put the intentions of these people in his eyes at all. He just saw a group of people dodging left and right. He was very angry. With a slash of the Azura sword, another Go player died under the Azura sword. The celestial chess immediately lost 2 Go players. The star power falling from the sky suddenly decreased, and Ji Wuxiang's attack and counterattack were greatly reduced. Chapter 1093. With fewer players, the celestial chess pieces became fragmented and the power of the stars weakened. Ji Wuxiang could no longer organize a strong counterattack. Seeing the Shura madly charging towards him, he trembled with fear. Where did Tang Zheng find this helper? Why didn't he know anything about it? He had also never seen him use this helper before. He didn't have time to think too much because he could only retreat with all his might and shout, "Run!" The word run was enough to explain everything. The advantage he had just established had collapsed and disappeared. He had even vowed to get rid of Tang Zheng and Xiao Bai, but now it seemed like a complete joke. When the others heard this, they all jumped over the wall and fled. As for Ji Wuxiang, he fled even faster and leaped onto the high wall with a whoosh. "Stop right there!" Tang Zheng loudly shouted as he jumped up and chased after him. However, just as he appeared in the Shura's line of sight, the Shura locked onto him and roared, swinging his Shura saber at him. Tang Zheng was in midair and didn't have time to turn around before he felt the terrifying power behind him. He raised his holy armor shield. Bang! With a muffled sound, Tang Zheng's qi and blood were shaken. He spat out a mouthful of blood and fell to the corner of the wall. He was no match for the Shura. Seeing Tang Zheng in danger, Xiao Bai shouted angrily and jumped up, the flames in his mouth attacking the Shura. The Shura was condensed from Yin Qi, but it already had a physical body, so it wasn't too afraid of flames. He raised his Shura saber and slashed, splitting the flames in half. The Shura saber left a long trench on the ground that stretched all the way to the corner of the wall. Xiao Bai cried out in alarm. His forehooves stepped on the air and his body was covered in flames, as if he was preparing to fight the Shura again. Tang Zheng hurriedly stopped him. "Xiao Bai, dodge. You're no match for him." Xiao Bai gave a cold snort and said reluctantly, "Master, this big guy is very strong, but if we don't catch him, are we going to let him run away?" Tang Zheng looked in the direction where Ji Wuxiang and the others had disappeared. Ji Wuxiang was a decisive person. When he saw that the situation was not good, he immediately ran away. It was impossible for him to chase after him. The Azura was not under his control, so he had his advantages and disadvantages. Therefore, he could not ignore the Azura and chase after him. Tang Zheng sighed inwardly when he saw Shura waving the Shura saber at him. He quickly chanted the Kitagarbha Sutra. Large golden Sanskrit words flew out from his mouth and surrounded Shura's body. The berserk Shura immediately calmed down. The madness and killing intent in his eyes also subsided. If Ji Wuxiang saw this scene, he would definitely be very surprised. This was because the Azura was like an insurmountable mountain to him, but to Tang Zheng, just a series of complex scriptures was enough to suppress the Azura. The gap between them was too big. Of course, he would definitely want to know the origin of this scripture, or even want to take it for himself. Xiao Bai opened his eyes wide and looked curiously at the scripture suppressing the Azura. Finally, when the Azura completely calmed down and was taken back into Sumer world by Tang Zheng, he could not help but let out a long sigh of relief. He said with lingering fear, "This Azura is really too strong. What is his background?" Xiao Bai did not experience the world of spirits and souls, so he did not know how extraordinary the Azura was. He could not help but be curious. Tang Zheng's face darkened. He looked at the mess in the Go Club and did not say anything. He kicked a few chessboards and said, "Let's leave here first." The man and beast left the Go Club and found that the outer walls of the Go Club were undamaged. The battle just now was very fierce, and could even be described as tragic. However, to the people outside, they did not notice this at all. Tang Zheng could not calm down. Of course, he understood that this was the effect of the heavenly chess. The heavenly chess seemed to be able to create a barrier that blocked everything outside the Go Club. This was the magic of the heavenly chess. He rushed back home at lightning speed, only to find that everyone was sitting in the hall. Although no one else had seen the commotion just now, the monstrous power of the stars, as well as the soaring murderous aura at the end, had still transmitted out. Therefore, if Tian Chanzi did not have scruples about the safety of the other people in the villa, he would definitely have rushed to the Go Club as soon as possible to investigate clearly. When they saw that Tang Zheng and Xiao Bai had returned safe and sound, everyone breathed a sigh of relief at the same time. They hurried to greet them and asked all at once what had happened. Little Yu Yu's dark figure was like a black lightning bolt. It directly flew out from behind the crowd and came to Xiao Bai's side. It kept nudging Xiao Bai's body with its head. Although it could not speak, its actions had already explained everything. Xiao Bai had sacrificed himself to save it. Of course, it could not forget this kindness. Seeing that it had returned safe and sound, it was naturally excited. However, Xiao Bai's fiery red fur attracted everyone's attention. It was completely different from before. If not for its pair of quick-witted eyes and unique temperament, no one would dare to think that it was the snow-white Xiao Bai. Everyone knew that Xiao Bai could evolve. This time, it seemed that it had encountered some kind of opportunity that caused it to evolve and become like this. It's good that you came back safe and sound. What happened to you and Xiao Bai? Why did it become like this? Yi Dingdang grabbed Tang Zhang's arm and asked incessantly. Tang Zhang's gloomy expression eased a little. He said, "It's a long story. Xiao Bai and I are fine, so you can rest assured. Also, there was a major discovery this time. If I tell you, you will definitely be shocked." What discovery? Fang Shishir and Yi Dingdang could not help but ask. Tian Chanzi seemed to be deep in thought. He looked out the window and asked tentatively, could it be related to the Go Club? Tang Zhang's eyes lit up as he stared at Tian Chanzi. The older, the wiser. He had actually guessed something. Tang Zhang nodded. Yes. Tian Chanzi frowned. What's wrong with the Go Club? Seeing that everyone was looking at him curiously, Tang Zhang did not continue to keep them in suspense. He said bluntly, Ji Wuxiang deliberately concealed his identity. It turns out that he is the person we've been looking for. Who? My lord. These two short and powerful words were like a sudden clap of thunder that exploded above everyone's heads. They were dizzy and incredulous. Someone shook his head and said, impossible. Didn't you say that you saw the Lord assassinate Ji Wuxiang with your own eyes? Also, the Empyrean fairy tested Ji Wuxiang, and he did not reveal any flaws. How could Ji Wuxiang be the Lord? Obviously, many people had this question in their hearts. Tian Chanzi also could not hide his surprise. He asked, do you have any evidence? Everyone knew that Tang Zhang was not one to make irresponsible remarks. If he dared to make such an assertion, then there must be evidence. The evidence is conclusive. Tang Zhang said tirelessly. He did not hide anything and told everyone what he had seen and heard tonight. Gradually, everyone's eyes widened like the beads on an abacus. The shock in their hearts was indescribable. Even Tian Chanzi jumped up from the sofa. Ji Wuxiang is the Lord, and the Lord is Ji Wuxiang. This guy hid too well and deceived everyone. Moreover, he even had such a crazy plan. This. Tian Chanzi muttered to himself. He really could not find the words to describe Ji Wuxiang's behavior. Fang Shishir patted her chest and said with lingering fear, this time was a fluke. If Xiao Bai had not been captured by Ji Wuxiang, and if you had not coincidentally tracked down the Go Club, then Ji Wuxiang would definitely have been able to continue deceiving everyone. One day in the future, he would suddenly make trouble. That would be the most difficult to guard against. At that time, we would definitely have suffered a greater loss. Lu Qingmei nodded in agreement. So this seems like a bad thing, but there's also a good side. It's a good thing for everyone to see through his true colors as soon as possible. Wu said indignantly, Ji Wuxiang is scheming and actually wants to use Heaven's chess to control the entire world. This is even more insane than the founder of the Azure Dragon Hall, New Era. Why are all the people in the Azure Dragon Hall crazy? Wu Junshan and Lan Yu were also present. Hearing this, the two of them looked at each other. They were the ones who understood the Azure Dragon Hall the earliest, but they had never thought of this point. If not for the appearance of Tang Zheng, this variable, one day in the future, Ji Wuxiang would have finished his preparations. At that time, no one would be able to stop him from advancing. With that thought, they looked at their son and couldn't help but feel gratified. Yi Dingdang curled his lips and said, Ji Wuxiang is powerful, but didn't a few of his chess players die as well? Moreover, he definitely won't dare to return to the chess club now, otherwise we will definitely make him suffer. He is also very clear on this point, so he has no way of continuing to control heaven's chess, so there's nothing to worry about. Yi Dingdang's thoughts were straightforward and did not have many complicated thoughts, but Tang Zheng was different. He understood everything and knew the inside story, so after a moment of silence, he said, "There is nothing in this world that is absolutely safe, so we don't dare to say that Ji Wuxiang has no other way." Wu Junshan looked at Tang Zheng with admiration and said, "The Azure Dragon Hall has stood tall for hundreds of years without falling. There are many reasons for this. Ji Wuxiang definitely understands the principle of a crafty rabbit having 3 burrows. Although a few chess players have died, and even Ji Wuxiang is unable to return to the chess club, I feel that he will definitely not give up just like this. He will definitely find a way to replace him." Lan Yu looked deeply at his son and couldn't help but hold his hand. He gently said, "Little Zheng, you can't let your guard down on this matter. Junshan is right, since Ji Wuxiang has hidden himself so deeply, then he definitely won't put all his eggs in one basket, so we can't be happy too early." Yi Dingdang heard this and his cheeks couldn't help but turn red. He said embarrassedly, "I was just saying it casually." Chapter 1094. Tian Chanzi looked at Tang Jing thoughtfully, then shook his head and said, "Ji Wuxiang has already escaped. Do you really think it's easy to find him again?" "Can't I?" Tang Jing asked. "He has Ji Wuxiang's identity as a cover. Can you guarantee that he doesn't have any other identities as a cover?" This time, he gave himself away because he was eager for quick success. He wanted to capture the red lunar beast and steal its inner core. After this incident, he will definitely be more careful. It's almost impossible for him to give himself away again. Tian Chanzi analyzed. Wu Junshan nodded seriously. He seemed to agree with Tian Chanzi's analysis. Tang Zheng calmed down and thought for a moment. He had to admit that Tian Chanzi's words made sense. A cunning rabbit has 3 burrows. Ji Wuxiang would definitely understand this. "Are we not going to do anything?" Yi Dingdang asked faintly. Tian Chanzi did not answer. Instead, he asked, "You saw Ji Wuxiang and the Great Lord appear in front of you at the same time. Also, the Great Lord's cultivation was definitely not weak. Who do you think is the real one and who is the fake one?" Tang Zheng was slightly stunned. He tried to recall the situation. The Great Lord was wearing a mask, but his strength was indeed extraordinary. It did not seem to be reduced at all. As for Ji Wuxiang, he was exactly the same as the real person. Especially his facial expression and eyes, they were no different from normal. This. Tang Zheng could not make up his mind at the moment. Tian Chanzi seemed to have expected this answer. He said, "To be able to pass off the fake as the real one, this is enough to prove that Ji Wuxiang is well prepared. Where would he find such a perfect substitute?" Everyone looked at each other. They could not come up with an answer. Tang Jing thought for a while and asked, "Do you think this is a breakthrough?" Tian Chanzi nodded seriously. "Yes. Many things will definitely have flaws if we think about it carefully. This incident left us with a clue." "What clue?" "If I can find this substitute, I might be able to find Ji Wuxiang." "Substitute?" Everyone frowned at the same time. Was this easier than directly finding Ji Wuxiang? That might not be the case. If you had to choose between the High Lord and Ji Wuxiang, who would you choose? Tian Chanzi asked. Tang Zheng closed his eyes. It was as if he was back in the scene at that time. He recalled the details of the scene one by one. In the end, he realized that the Great Lord under the mask was the easiest to replace. On the contrary, Ji Wuxiang looked more like the real person. High Lord. All right. Heaven Monk clapped his hands. Venerable Lord is a martial artist of the martial king realm. If you were to find a substitute for him, it would be as difficult as ascending to the heavens. He spied in the dark and found the right time to give us a fatal blow. Tian Chanzi said in a deep voice. Tang Zheng was silent. Tian Chanzi's analysis was definitely not on a whim. It was a real analysis based on the current situation. His thousands of years of experience was not in vain. In many aspects, he saw further and more thoroughly than anyone present. Tang Zheng retracted the smile on his face and became serious, because he had heard what she had said. If 100 Changes Star Sovereign really cooperates with Ji Wuxiang, it is very bad news for us. Tian Chanzi nodded. Ji Wuxiang is very resourceful. I believe that he has seen 100 Changes Star Sovereign's methods several times and will definitely find another way. As for 100 Changes Star Sovereign, his personal strength is indeed very strong, but his wisdom is not as good as Ji Wuxiang's. Ji Wuxiang is very eloquent. It is very likely that he can persuade 100 Changes Star Sovereign to cooperate with him to deal with us. This is also a good temporary solution. Everyone was shocked by this analysis and deduction. Wu Junshan's eyes lit up and he sighed sincerely. Listening to your words is better than reading books for 10 years. We really thought too simply. Even if this is the case, how are we going to find 100 Changes Star Sovereign? Tang Zheng asked. 100 Changes Star Sovereign thinks highly of himself. Seeing Ji Wuxiang's pale face, he will definitely not sit back and do nothing. Perhaps he will make a big move in the near future. Previously, he was quiet because Ji Wuxiang convinced him. Now that Ji Wuxiang is pale, 100 Changes Star Sovereign will naturally take the initiative again and attack aggressively. Tian Chanzi's mouth curved into a faint smile. He was very confident in his analysis. Is that so? Then won't we be passive and get beaten up again? Tang Zheng's brows furrowed even tighter. 100 Changes Star Sovereign's attack was not a joke. It could kill. Don't worry. As long as 100 Changes Star Sovereign makes a move, we can fight back. Our strength is not weak now. Plus, we have that mysterious Shura in your summer world. It's more than enough to deal with them. Tian Chanzi was not worried at all. Tang Zheng shook his head and smiled bitterly. Don't pin all your hopes on Shura. He is an unreliable helper. If something unexpected happens, even I can't do anything about it. I don't know what will happen in the end. So unless it is absolutely necessary, I will never use Shura. Everyone listened to his explanation about the world of spirits and souls. They understood how powerful Shura was and how uncontrollable he was. They all agreed with him. Besides, after those chess players died, does Ji Wuxiang have any other way to control the celestial chess? Tian Chanzi asked again. He was also very shocked by the celestial chess. Throughout the ages, only Ji Wuxiang had been able to come up with such a thing. It could be said that no one had ever done it before, and no one would be able to do it in the future. Especially when Ji Wuxiang tried to use the celestial chess to control the world. This ambition made Tian Chanzi sigh with emotion. Even in the ancient times when the cultivators ran amok, no one dared to have such an ambition. Because, at that time, there were too many powerhouses and sections. No one had the ability to control the cultivators in the world. As for the ancient emperors, they only ruled over the common people. To the cultivators, the ancient emperors and nobles were just so. Why? Do you think he still has a way to control the celestial chess? Tang Zheng asked. Heaven Monk bluntly nodded his head, yes. Do you have a way to confirm this? Wu Junshan reminded. Confirm? Tang Zheng looked up. The moon was bright and the stars were sparse outside the window. The power of the stars had disappeared. How could he confirm if the celestial chess was still running? Although he had already compared the celestial chess, without Ji Wuxiang activating the celestial chess, there was no way to confirm this. Don't you have a way? Tang Zheng shook his head regretfully. Indeed, I don't have a way. I'm afraid only Ji Wuxiang himself knows the answer. Everyone couldn't help but feel a little disappointed, but there was nothing they could do. Could the celestial chess really still operate normally? After Ji Wuxiang and the chess players escaped, they came to a safe place. Looking at the starry sky outside, Ji Wuxiang's face was as gloomy as water. It was darker and gloomier than the sky, causing people to tremble in fear. The chess players stood obediently to his left and right, unable to hide the fear on their faces. The battle just now had left a deep impression on them, especially the appearance of the Shura. It had almost destroyed the strong confidence they had built up over a long period of time. Lord, a few of our brothers have died. What about the celestial chess? Someone finally couldn't help but ask. Chapter 1095. It had been more than 10 days since the incident at the chess club. The capital was calm and peaceful, and it was as if Ji Wuxiang had really disappeared from this world. Tang Zheng had also returned to his peaceful campus life. Although he had secretly instructed the Yan family to pay close attention to the movements in the capital, especially the whereabouts of Ji Wuxiang and Yimeiyu. However, there were no clues for the time being. As for what had happened in the chess club, unrelated people did not know at all. Everyone kept their mouths shut. Unknowingly, the few women in the family had become harmonious. This atmosphere was very subtle and had reached a balance. Yi Dingdang was the boldest, and had sneaked into Tang Zheng's room for several nights. Although he knew that it was very likely that he would be discovered by others, he still enjoyed it. Tang Zheng dealt with the few women and did not favor one over the other. He found the right opportunity and secretly had a lot of happy things with the others. Princess Anne threw herself into her jewelry business and forgot to eat and sleep. She was also developing in the direction of a strong woman. Tang Zheng was happy to be quiet and did not interfere. After the concert incident, Linger's reputation was unparalleled. It went up a level and became even more popular. Of course, many people were very interested in the important person that Linger had announced at the concert. However, there were many difficulties and they did not find many clues. Thus, it became an unsolved case. After Bai evolved, his power had obviously increased, and his fighting strength had also increased greatly. The fiery red hair on his body was especially eye-catching, so during this period of time, he had also learned to be obedient and did not run around anymore. Yu Yu understood that there were outsiders who had designs on her, so she stayed at home obediently. In the evening, Tang Zheng, Fang Shishir and Yi Dingdang walked out of the campus together. This scene had been repeated many times, and the others were already used to it. The three of them chatted as they walked. Suddenly, a person rushed out from the side and shouted, "Master, I've finally found you." He took a closer look and found that it was the King of Medicine. Tang Zheng was shocked. He saw that the King of Medicine's white beard and hair were a little messy, and he seemed to be in a hurry and panic. He hurriedly asked, "King of Medicine, don't worry. What happened? Take your time." The Medicine King's sudden appearance in the capital, and even outside of the school, caused Tang Zheng to be shocked. Ever since the last time they parted, the Medicine King had returned to the medicine factory to carefully research medicine. Once the King of Medicine was fully immersed in his research, he almost reached the stage where he forgot to eat and sleep. Usually, he had almost no contact with Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng was completely at ease about this kind of professional matter, so he didn't ask much. Yi Dingdang and Fang Shishir looked at the King of Medicine and greeted him politely at the same time. The King of Medicine didn't care about the two of them. He took a breath and couldn't wait to say, "I came to the capital this time to urge the approval of the medicine. There are many specific questions that I may have to answer to them in person. Since I came to the capital, I must come to see my master. But I suddenly received a call just now. Something happened in the pharmaceutical factory." "What happened?" Tang Zheng asked with a serious expression. "Our volunteers for the clinical trial died." "How could they die?" Tang Zheng was shocked and his face suddenly darkened. The King of Medicine's heart also sank to the bottom. He hurriedly explained, "These volunteers were all seriously ill. Almost all of them were terminally ill. The medicine we developed this time has a targeted treatment for many terminally ill patients. The early observation was very good, and they all showed different degrees of improvement. Moreover, we dared to recruit volunteers for the drug test after many trials. It should be foolproof." Tang Zheng knew that many pharmaceutical companies would conduct clinical trials before the introduction of a new medicine to finally check the performance of the medicine. Of course, the volunteers for these clinical trials would adhere to the principle of voluntariness. Moreover, since the pharmaceutical company dared to conduct clinical trials, it meant that they had full confidence. Otherwise, no one dared to take their fate lightly. The king of medicine was a leading figure in the medical field. There was no doubt about his authority and vision in this respect. This clinical trial was led by him, so it shouldn't go wrong. He didn't expect that as soon as he left, something like this would happen. It was really a coincidence and even strange. Are you confident in your medicine and clinical trials? Tang Zheng stared at the king of medicine. Their eyes met. Under his sharp eyes, the king of medicine didn't shrink back. Instead, his eyes became firmer and firmer. Finally, he nodded and said, I guarantee with my own integrity that there should be absolutely no problem. The king of medicine was so confident, so Tang Zheng certainly believed him. In this field of expertise, he would not question the authority of the king of medicine. But it has happened. What do you think is going on? Tang Zheng asked. The king of medicine pondered for a while and gradually calmed down. The panic he felt when he first heard the news gradually subsided. He regained his wisdom, and his eyes flashed. I will investigate in detail and find out what went wrong. I will go back to the pharmaceutical factory now. The pharmaceutical factory was in a big city adjacent to the capital. It was not too far away. If he rushed back now, he could get there in the middle of the night. Tang Zheng's eyebrows were tightly knitted as the medicine king was so confident in his medicine and clinical trials, so there was definitely something fishy going on. The medicine king was an expert in dealing with diseases, but when it came to other matters, he might not be as proficient. Tang Zheng moved his head and said, I will go back with you. The king of medicine was surprised and asked, Master, I can handle this matter. How can I trouble you to come here? The king of medicine was a little embarrassed. He had a strong sense of respect for his master. Since he had really worshipped Tang Zheng as his master, he treated Tang Zheng as his master in the deepest part of his heart. Seeing that his matter had alarmed Tang Zheng, he was naturally terrified. Tang Zheng took a deep look at him and guessed his thoughts. He patted him on the shoulder and comforted him, King of medicine, don't worry. I believe in you. We just need to investigate this matter clearly. Besides, after the pharmaceutical factory was built, I have not been to see it. Everything was handed over to you and Mu Hongyan. I should go there. Seeing that there was no reproach in Tang Zheng's words, even though the medicine king blamed himself, he still let out a sigh of relief. Okay then, we will head out now. Go back and tell them that I will leave the capital in 2 days. Take care of yourselves. Tang Zheng told Fang Shishir and Yi Dingdang. Yi Dingdang wanted to go with him, but she and Fang Shishir were both students and did not have as much freedom as Tang Zheng. She had no choice but to agree resentfully. The king of medicine drove the car. Tang Zheng got in his car and rushed to the king of medicine. At midnight, the two returned to the pharmaceutical factory. In the darkness of the night, only a rough outline of the huge pharmaceutical factory could be seen, but it was enough to show its huge scale. Looking at this scene, Tang Zheng could not help but feel a sense of pride. The pharmaceutical factory was an important part of his business plan. He could not afford to lose it, because it was not only related to himself, but also to thousands of families. He had heard the king of medicine report on his research. According to Tang Zheng's prescription and the life-prolonging pill, the new medicine developed was very effective. It solved many difficult problems in pathology and there was hope for many incurable diseases. Therefore, this was a good deed to benefit the common people, not just a tool to make money. Therefore, he absolutely could not allow any mistakes. Moreover, this matter involved a person's life, so he could not take it lightly. He had to get to the bottom of it. The windows of a building were clean and bright, and the lights were bright. The king of medicine and Tang Zheng strode into the building together. Someone hurriedly greeted them and reported the specific details to the king of medicine. The patient who died was one of the hundreds of volunteers. Yesterday's data and conditions showed that he was in good condition, but this afternoon, he suddenly had a seizure and coughed up a lot of blood. In the end, within a few minutes, before the rescue was carried out, he died. Hundreds of volunteers for the clinical trial lived in this building. When this situation was discovered, they immediately carried out strict monitoring of the other patients. Fortunately, this was the only case. But no one was happy. Just this case was enough to show that their early efforts would be in vain, and all their beautiful hopes would be shattered. Therefore, the building was filled with a sad atmosphere. Although it was midnight, no one left. They were all waiting for the King of Medicine to make a decision. The King of Medicine listened to the detailed report while looking at the information in his hand. The data would not lie. These data showed that the patient's organs rapidly failed in the last extreme period of time, and finally led to the patient's death. Our medicine will never cause this kind of situation, the King of Medicine said firmly. The others looked at him uneasily and said, could it be a complication caused by our medicine? There is also a precedent in medicine. The King of Medicine's eyes were cold, as if lightning flew out. He was full of confidence and said proudly, I won't. This kind of situation won't happen. On the way back, he had been worried. But after looking at the data and information just now, he was determined that this was not a problem with his medicine. There was probably another unknown reason. Everyone was silent and looked at the King of Medicine at a loss. He was the authority, and all of this was only decided by him. King of Medicine, what should we do now? Someone asked at a loss. The King of Medicine was not in a hurry to answer. Instead, he wanted to look at Tang Zheng and whispered, Master, you see, although his voice was very good, most of the people around heard it clearly. The word master was particularly harsh. Everyone was horrified and looked at Tang Zheng incredulously. How could this guy, who was younger than them and looked like a college student, be the King of Medicine's master? It was as if there was a space-time confusion. Everyone looked at each other and looked at each other to make sure that they were not hallucinating. The King of Medicine really called this young man his master. This was simply a fantasy. Chapter 1096. Ji Wuxiang stared at this scene in disbelief. This was completely beyond his understanding, and his eyes were about to pop out of their sockets. Whoosh! The Shura saber suddenly appeared and danced in the air. The aura between heaven and earth was shattered by this saber strike. Seeing the Shura saber slashing toward him, Ji Wuxiang's soul, which was about to leave his body, finally returned to his body. His whole body trembled as if he was facing a great enemy. He quickly jumped to the side and dodged this attack by a hair's breadth. Kacha! A huge gully appeared in the ground. It was so deep that the bottom could not be seen. It was as if it led to the core of the earth, and black gas was continuously emitting from it. Ji Wuxiang could escape, but there was a chess player who did not have his ability. He did not even have the slightest chance to escape, and was instantly cleaved in half from head to toe by the Shura saber. Blood splattered everywhere, and the scene was extremely horrifying. Ji Wuxiang's eyes widened, and he roared furiously, You actually killed my chess player. The chess player was a resource that could not be reproduced. It was the result of many years of nurturing by Ji Wuxiang, and was extremely important to him and Tian Qi. Seeing his chess player die under the Shura saber, and Ji Wuxiang could not do anything, one could imagine the fury in his heart. Tang Zheng's lips curled up, and he thought to himself, although I destroyed your chess game, you can still use the power of the stars to rebuild it. Now that the Shura saber has killed your chess player, can you still revive the dead? Obviously, Ji Wuxiang did not have the ability to do so. Thus, one could imagine the monstrous fury in his heart. It was as if it was going to erupt from every pore of his body. Ji Wuxiang leaped up and charged toward Tang Zheng, roaring, Tang Zheng, you must die. Tang Zheng did not counterattack at all, because the Shura saber had already made the first move. The Shura saber did not listen to anyone's orders. When he stood between Ji Wuxiang and Tang Zheng, and Ji Wuxiang fought back, the Shura saber naturally made Ji Wuxiang his primary target. Thus, he swung the Shura saber without hesitation. With a whoosh, the Shura saber drew a black arc in the air, and instantly attacked Ji Wuxiang. This time, Ji Wuxiang did not dodge. Instead, he readied himself for a counterattack. He chanted the Shura saber's 6 words, and activated the power of the stars at the same time. The Shura saber's 6 words instantly jumped out of his mouth, and an invisible force bound the Shura saber's body, attempting to imprison him. However, the murderous aura on his body was too strong, and the Shura saber's 6 words did not have the effect it should have. The Shura saber's attack collapsed and disappeared without a trace. In addition, the power of the stars descended from the sky, penetrating the layers of black clouds and enveloping the Shura saber's body. The Shura saber immediately felt uncomfortable. The power of the stars was indeed extraordinary. Not only did it not stop the Shura saber, but it also aroused his ferocity. A cold light flashed in his eyes, and it seemed to be solid as it shot out from his huge eye sockets. He fiercely stomped his foot. Bang! The earth trembled as if there was an earthquake. The ruins on the ground were shaken and flew high into the air. Whoosh! The Shura saber danced in the air, forming a dazzling black saber light. The ruins were enveloped by this saber light, and it was like an invincible divine weapon. In the blink of an eye, it attacked Ji Wuxiang. Ji Wuxiang's face paled. Under the pressure of the Azura saber, he could feel the threat of death. It was more realistic than any other time he had felt it. This time, he did not expect to counterattack. Instead, he tried to escape. However, the Shura saber did not give him the chance. The Shura saber slashed down on his head. Blood seemed to be about to appear. However, blood still did not appear. This was because Ji Wuxiang raised his hands and grabbed the Shura saber. With his cultivation, it was impossible for him to grab the Shura saber like this. He gathered the power of countless stars in his hands. Therefore, he used all his strength to barely grab the Shura saber. However, was this the end? Of course not. He had underestimated the Shura saber's strength. Ji Wuxiang's huge eyes stared at Ji Wuxiang. He felt as if he was being stared at by the god of death. A gloomy aura of death appeared in his heart. The Shura saber looked at Ji Wuxiang with contempt, as if to say that he dared to fight him one-on-one with such little strength. Was he not seeking death? A cold light flashed in his eyes, and killing intent filled the air. The Shura saber flashed, and its power increased greatly. The power was even more terrifying than the weight of Mount Tai. In an instant, the power was transmitted from the saber to Ji Wuxiang's palms. Pa, pa. 2 sounds of bones breaking rang out. Ji Wuxiang's palms immediately drooped down. They were soft and weak. They had actually been broken by the power transmitted from the Shura saber. Ji Wuxiang's muscles and bones were extremely strong. There was no need to doubt this. However, facing the Shura saber's attack, Ji Wuxiang could not withstand it even if he slightly increased the power. This was enough to show the difference in strength between the 2 sides. It was practically a difference between heaven and earth. Ji Wuxiang also realized this. He did not care about the pain. He cried out inwardly and staggered backwards. It was as if he had turned from a mighty and unyielding general into a fleeing stray dog. He was unwilling to give up. He stared at the Shura saber intently, as if he wanted to see through him. However, after looking for a moment, he did not have any clues at all. In his knowledge, there had never been a Shura saber. After all, the Shura saber was only known by a few people at the top of the hierarchy in the world of spirits and souls. Not to mention the people in the human world who knew about the Shura saber. However, Tang Zheng knew how powerful the Shura saber was. Seeing that the Shura saber had firmly locked onto Ji Wuxiang, he was secretly delighted. He and Xiaobai retreated far away, but he did not take the opportunity to escape. In that case, it would be harder for Ji Wuxiang to catch up with him. However, he did not leave because he knew how powerful the Shura saber was. Dizang of Goguryeo had left the Shura saber to him to guard, and even taught him the Ksitigarbha Sutra. He had also repeatedly exhorted him. Tang Zheng understood that he could not sit idly by and do nothing about the Shura saber. If he left, after the Shura saber left, he would make a huge mistake. He did not have the qualifications and ability to take responsibility for this matter. Therefore, he must stay and pay close attention to the Shura saber's every move. Ji Wuxiang saw that Tang Jing did not escape, but instead watched him and Shura saber fight with great interest. The flame in his heart was even more indescribable, as if it was going to ignite him. Tang Jing, you have a helper, but you still want to see me make a fool of myself. I won't let you do as you wish. Ji Wuxiang cursed hysterically in his heart. Obviously, he had guessed Tang Zheng's real purpose wrong, but it was no longer important. Because he had escaped from the Shura saber in a panic, there was no extra chance to fight back against Tang Zheng. Ji Wuxiang was like a stray dog, hiding from place to place. As for the effect of the non-phase method, it had long been destroyed by the Shura saber. The other Go players also moved, taking large strides to position themselves, trying to attract more star power to come, so as to completely defeat the Shura saber. Shura shook his head. He did not put the intentions of these people in his eyes at all. He just saw a group of people hiding from place to place. He was so angry that he slashed with the Shura saber, and another Go player died under the Shura saber. Chapter 1097. Another patient is vomiting blood. The voice startled everyone. The king of medicine was the first to react. He shouted as if he had just woken up from a dream, "Take me to see him." Everyone swarmed toward the ward. All the volunteers who accepted the clinical trial were in a special treatment area. Everyone had a separate ward, so that it was convenient to observe the situation of each case. Many medical staff had already gathered in the ward. When they saw the king of medicine striding in, everyone subconsciously made way for him. "Those who have nothing to do with this, get out." "What are you doing here?" the king of medicine said majestically. Although he was very humble in front of Tang Zheng, in other people's eyes, no one dared to go against him. They all retreated outside the door. Suddenly, only the king of medicine, Tang Zheng, and several attending doctors were left in the ward. These doctors were the elites that the king of medicine had specially poached from major hospitals and research institutes. They were people with real talent. The attending doctors introduced the situation to the king of medicine. There was no abnormality in the patient's previous monitoring, and there was an obvious improvement. Just like the last patient who had died, he suddenly coughed up blood, and then his organs rapidly failed. Based on the experience of the last patient, this person might not last an hour. The king of medicine's eyes were as serious as the sky before a storm. They were frighteningly gloomy. The others had never seen the king of medicine like this, and they couldn't help but feel uneasy. It was reasonable for the king of medicine to be so gloomy. On the way back, he and Tang Zheng had done a detailed analysis and reached a consensus. This time, someone was playing tricks, and it was not really a problem with the drug. The other party's move was very ruthless, and it was simply aimed at their vital points. Once there was a problem in the clinical trial, and a patient died, it would be a major medical accident. Not only would the company be held responsible, but more importantly, the drug could not be smoothly marketed as scheduled. This was equivalent to announcing a death sentence to the king of medicine and all the research and development work. Many patients would not be able to receive better treatment. Doctors were benevolent, and the king of medicine was even more merciful. How could he not be angry when he saw the enemy in the dark was so insidious and cunning, and his heart was like a snake? However, he temporarily suppressed this anger in his heart, because he still didn't know who was playing tricks in the dark. The king of medicine checked the patient's condition, and his frown deepened. The situation was more serious than he had expected. Although the king of medicine was Xing Lin Sheng, he did not have the skill of reviving the dead. This person was almost declared medically dead, because his vitality were. "Master, I can't do anything," the king of medicine said regretfully and self-reproachfully. He boasted that he was the king of medicine, and his medical skills were superior, but at this moment, He couldn't save this person's life. The frustration and self-reproach in his heart could be imagined. This person had the resources to participate in his clinical trial, which meant that he chose to believe in him, but in the end, he died. He had an unshirkable responsibility. The others still didn't know the identity of Tang Zheng. When they heard the king of medicine call him master and ask him for advice, they all looked at him in surprise, as if they were looking at a monster. Tang Zheng remained calm and said, "Let me see." He put 2 fingers on the patient's wrist, and the weak pulse almost disappeared. Tang Zheng remained calm and collected, and a wisp of true qi drilled into the patient's meridians to really explore his situation. This examination was more detailed than the various complicated instruments around. The result was not optimistic, and it was consistent with the king of medicine's words. This person's life was really coming to an end. Huh? Suddenly, Tang Zheng raised his eyebrows, and a look of doubt appeared in his eyes. "What's wrong?" The king of medicine was shocked and quickly asked. "He's poisoned." "Poisoned?" Everyone's face changed greatly. "This poison is very overbearing and strange. I'm afraid that you won't be able to detect it with instruments," Tang Zheng added. Previously, they really didn't find any results, and even the autopsy of the dead person didn't find this. Tang Zheng's eyes flashed as he coldly snorted and said, "Truly vicious and merciless, to actually poison them. Then do you have a way?" The king of medicine asked anxiously. Tang Zheng pondered for a moment, and nodded heavily. "There is a way. I'll use my qi to force the poison out of him." As he spoke, he glanced at the others. The king of medicine understood and called the others out, so as not to disturb Tang Zheng's qi. "King of medicine, go and investigate. Since it's poisoning, then there must be someone who poisoned them. Investigate the staff who can come into contact with these patients. I'm afraid that there is a mole among us, otherwise, the enemy wouldn't be able to poison them so easily. In addition, the enemy is so cruel and merciless, they definitely wouldn't just poison these 2 people. I'm afraid that there are other people who have also been poisoned, but the poison hasn't acted up yet. Pay close attention to the other patients, understand?" Tang Zheng ordered in an orderly manner. The king of medicine understood and nodded solemnly to show that he understood, and then left. Tang Zheng concentrated and began to force the poison out of the patient's body. This was a painful process, but the patient was already on the verge of death, so no matter how painful it was, it didn't have much of a specific feeling. A black line gradually appeared on the surface of the patient's body, and converged from the 4 limbs to the right arm, like a stream converging into a river. The black line grew larger, like a poisonous snake slithering along the meridians to his fingertips. Tang Zheng's fingernail scratched the patient's fingertip, and a stream of black blood flowed out from the cut. A foul stench spread out, making people nauseous. Tang Zheng took out a clean small bottle, put the black blood inside, and put it to the side. This black blood was poison, and there was no way to expel it with modern medical equipment. Only someone like Tang Zheng could use true qi to separate the poison from the 4 limbs, bones, and meridians, and then force it out of the body. Otherwise, after the poison was scattered in various parts of the body, the medicinal properties of the poison would be very weak, but when gathered together, it would be very overbearing and fatal to the life. However, although the poison was forced out, the organs of the patient's body had already failed, and his vitality was almost cut off. There was no way to save the desperate situation, and ordinary medicine had no effect at all. Unless new vitality was injected, it could prolong his life. Tang Zheng's heart moved. Without hesitation, he took out the Dragon Yuan elixir and fed it to the patient. Although the Dragon Yuan elixir was extremely precious, it was not worth mentioning compared to a human life. Moreover, this person was equivalent to dying because of Tang Zheng and the king of medicine. How could Tang Zheng sit by and do nothing? No matter how precious the elixir was, he would never be stingy. The Dragon Yuan elixir contained a strong vitality, and it could almost bring the dead back to life. When the Dragon Yuan elixir entered his mouth, it turned into a warm current, flowing down from his throat, and then integrated into every meridian and every cell in his body. The strong vitality immediately awakened every dying cell and every failing organ. His body was glowing with vigorous vitality, just like a withered tree in spring. Tang Zheng looked at the patient indifferently. Seeing that the patient's pale cheeks gradually became rosy, his breathing became more stable, and his pulse became stronger, he could not help but feel relieved. This was equivalent to pulling him back from the gates of hell, which made him feel relieved. But when he saw the black blood in the bottle, a cold light flashed in his eyes, and his momentum was aggressive. Who was behind this? If he was found out, he would not let him off easily. Creak. The door was pushed open, and the King of Medicine came in and asked, "Master, how is it?" "His life is no longer in danger. What he needs is rest." "Really? That's great." The King of Medicine was overjoyed and did not doubt the authenticity of this sentence. But the others outside the door were skeptical. How could a dying patient be saved so quickly a few minutes ago? Cough, cough. Suddenly, the patient coughed and called weakly, "Water, I want to drink water." Tang Jing quickly helped him up and handed him a glass of water. The patient gulped down a few mouthfuls of water and breathed a long sigh of relief, saying, "I'm so thirsty." The others looked at him as if they had seen a ghost. A few minutes ago, he was still struggling on the line of life and death, and could die at any time. But now he could drink water. Was this the final radiance of the setting sun? Impossible. His organs had failed. How could he become so lively? Even if it was the final radiance of the setting sun, it could not be like this. But all this was so real, and not an illusion. What was going on? Even if these people were medical elites, they could not find the answer at all for a while. "Master, he is." The King of Medicine was also surprised and asked. "I gave him an elixir." "Dragon Yuan elixir?" The King of Medicine asked in a low voice. As far as he knew, only the Dragon Yuan elixir had such a miraculous effect. Seeing Tang Jing nod, the King of Medicine took a deep breath and was in awe. He knew the magic and preciousness of the Dragon Yuan elixir. Tang Jing actually used the Dragon Yuan elixir to save a stranger whose life was hanging by a thread. This kind of spirit made the King of Medicine very moved and emotional. Sure enough, he was his master. Ordinary people could not be compared to him. If it were other people, they would certainly not be willing to use the Dragon Yuan elixir. But Tang Jing did so, showing that he was a merciful person. In addition to being gratified, the King of Medicine also felt honored. His action of becoming a disciple seemed to be on a whim, but now it seemed that he did not do anything wrong. He also did not regret it. This kind of person was worthy of being his master. It was also his honor to have such a master. The others did not hear the conversation between the two clearly, but they were shocked by Tang Zhang's method of reviving the dead. The way they looked at him changed dramatically, and became somewhat respectful. The one who achieved was respected. No matter what field it was, this was a universal rule. Tang Zhang had done something that no one else had done, and everyone's impression of him had naturally undergone an earth-shattering change, and their gazes towards him were filled with reverence. The patient looked at the crowd in confusion. He did not know what had happened and did not know that he had just walked through the gates of hell. Tang Jing handed the bottle in his hand to the King of Medicine and said, "This is the poison in his body. Quickly take it and analyze it." Chapter 1098. The King of Medicine was worried about the others, so he personally took the black blood for testing. Tang Jing checked the bodies of the others and found poison in 3 more people. Fortunately, the poison did not take effect immediately, giving him time to use his internal energy to force the poison out. After a good rest, he would be fine. At this time, the test results of the poison also came out. The King of Medicine's face was very ugly. Looking at the report in his hand, his eyes were almost spitting fire. He said indignantly, "The test results are out. This is a mixture of many deadly poisons. If it weren't for you, Master, even the gods wouldn't be able to save them. The other party's intentions are terrible." Is there a preventive measure? Yes, I have carefully prepared the antidote. If the other party makes a move again, it will definitely be able to save them in time. Master, you don't have to do anything. The King of Medicine was full of confidence. King of Medicine. At this time, a person hurried over. What did you find? The King of Medicine's expression turned cold as he stared at the other person. The person who came in took a breath and said, "We did find some clues. There is a problem with one of the members of the research and development team." Oh, what's the problem? This person has close contact with several poison patients, and he asked for leave early this morning and did not come to work. Moreover, we also found his various sneaky actions in the surveillance video. As he spoke, he turned on the tablet in his hand, and a picture was played on it. It was a man in a white coat adding something to the patient's injection. There was no doubt that what was added was poison. The King of Medicine fiercely stamped his foot and said, "There really is a mole. Without the cooperation of a mole, it would be extremely difficult for an outsider to do such a thing." This was because every floor and every door in this building had a door lock. Outsiders could not step in at all. The only people who could silently poison people could only be their own people. Why did he do this? The King of Medicine asked very seriously. No one answered him, but there was no doubt that it was most likely due to greed. Where does he live? Let's go find him. I want to ask him personally why he did this. The King of Medicine said decisively. I'll go with you, Tang Jing said. The King of Medicine nodded and led several staff members to the mole's residence. When they walked to the door, Tang Jing sniffed twice, raised his eyebrows, and said, "Be careful, everyone." After that, he slammed the door open and saw a person lying in a pool of blood. It was none other than the traitor. His eyes were wide open, as if he had died with a grievance. His blood had dried up, and it was obvious that he had been dead for a long time. The murderer had long since escaped, and could not be found. When the others saw this scene, they were stunned. The colleagues who had been working together yesterday were actually separated by life and death just like that. The clues were cut off here. What should they do next? Many people looked at each other. Tang Zheng and the King of Medicine looked at each other. They both realized how tricky this matter was. The enemy was not only vicious, but also had a head start. Now that the mole had been killed, their clues were completely cut off, and there was no way for them to continue investigating. "Master, what should we do?" the King of Medicine asked. Tang Zheng said in a low voice, "Inform the police. Let's leave first." When they returned to the pharmaceutical factory, the sky was already bright. However, there were many more people at the entrance. They were chattering and making a lot of noise. Everyone's nerves had been tense. When they saw this scene, they hurriedly asked, "What's going on?" At this time, the King of Medicine's phone rang. After listening to a few words, his face became very ugly. He was so angry that he almost threw his phone. He roared angrily, "Conspiracy, this is all a conspiracy." When the others saw him like this, they looked at him curiously. The King of Medicine took a deep breath and suppressed the anger in his heart. He said, "There are reporters here for an interview." The people blocking the gate are reporters from various news media. Sure enough, they saw people carrying cameras and microphones in the crowd. The reporters turned around and saw the car coming to the gate. Immediately, they rushed over, raised their microphones high, and aimed their cameras directly at them. "We won't get out of the car. Let's rush over," someone said. "Nonsense," the King of Medicine reprimanded sternly. Tang Zheng sighed secretly and said, "It's better to let them know than to block them. Since the media is already here, the enemy has already spread rumors. At this time, avoiding them is not the best way. Instead, it will make people suspicious and let the rumors fester. In the end, it will be out of control." The King of Medicine nodded in agreement. "Master, you're right. Right and wrong have their own justice. I don't believe that the rascals can really use such despicable means to achieve their goals. If we want to fight back, we should start with the media. The King of Medicine opened the door and walked out of the car. Immediately, he was surrounded by cameras. The reporters immediately began to ask questions. The King of Medicine patiently answered one by one, but the reporters did not give up. The questions became more and more tricky. More and more, they were unreasonable. It was as if they wanted to create a big news story. The King of Medicine tried his best to explain. In the end, his mouth was dry, but it did not satisfy the group of reporters. Instead, the crowd pushed and shoved, and they almost bumped into the King of Medicine. If it were not for the fact that he practiced Shenong Jing and was not an ordinary old man, he would have lost half his life under the siege. It seemed that this was not a good idea. Moreover, many of these reporters were bought by the enemy. It was impossible to reason with them. Instead, they would seize a few words out of context and make a big deal out of it. Tang Jing realized that he had underestimated the seriousness of the matter. It was impossible to reason with these people. Just as he was about to take action, car horns sounded. Several cars came from a distance and stopped directly in front of the crowd. Several men in black got out of the car and opened the door. Tang Zheng's pupils shrank because he recognized these men in black. These bodyguard-like men in black turned out to be disciples of the Wu tribe. The car door opened, and a pair of high-heeled shoes was lifted up, followed by a pair of slender stockings. Finally, a dignified and virtuous figure got out of the car. The well-tailored business suit set off her figure incisively and vividly. The places that should be perky were perky, and the places that should be perky were perky. Her slender white neck was like a white swan, and the high bun on her hair made her even more outstanding and elegant. Everyone was subconsciously attracted by this scene, and many men and women's eyes flashed with amazement at the same time. Mu Hongyan. Suddenly, there was an exclamation. The reporters rushed to Mu Hongyan like a tide. For Mu Hongyan, who frequently appeared in newspapers and news, her popularity was too great. She had too many halos on her. It was like this since the beginning of the Long family in Dianan. Later, when she presided over Tang Zheng's commercial aircraft carrier, her appearance rate greatly increased, so how could these reporters not know her? Moreover, on the surface, this pharmaceutical factory was ultimately controlled by the group led by Mu Hongyan. Her appearance here at this time was self-evident. She was definitely here because of the problem with the new drug's clinical trial. The importance of besieging her was obviously greater than the Medicine King's. Furthermore, there were many people with dark intentions. If he could pull down the queen of the business world and beat her into the dust, it would definitely be a memorable event in his career that was worth writing about and writing about. When Tang Zheng saw Mu Hongyan, a trace of tenderness flashed in his eyes. He was slightly surprised. Why did she come back from Europe? Had she finished her work there? During this period of time, he didn't care about Europe because he believed that Mu Hongyan would definitely be able to handle it beautifully. Seeing the reporters surrounding Mu Hongyan, all kinds of tricky and rude questions were thrown at her like a cannonball. Tang Zheng's eyebrows furrowed even tighter, and there was even a trace of anger in his heart. Mu Hongyan was his woman and he definitely would not allow these people to make things difficult for her. Perhaps she was not clear about the situation and would be troubled by these questions and feel wronged in her heart. When he thought of this, the anger in Tang Zheng's heart surged. When he was ready to save the situation and block these annoying flies for her, he saw Mu Hongyan looking in his direction. Although it was just a simple look, Tang Zheng instantly read her mind. She didn't want him to go, or she was confident that she could deal with everything in front of her. Tang Zheng subconsciously stopped and came to his senses. Mu Hongyan was a queen-like strong woman in the business world. She had seen all kinds of battles and scenes. How could these reporters be difficult for her? Even if she didn't know the specific situation, she must have a way to deal with it. Therefore, at the last moment, Tang Zheng chose to believe Mu Hongyan's look. Mu Hongyan gracefully stood in the middle of the crowd, calm and unruffled. She didn't have the slightest trace of the Medicine King's panic from before as she responded with ease. In the end, she said with an unquestionable tone, "Friends from the media, we will be releasing a press release on this matter later. At that time, we will explain everything one by one. After that, she gave a look to the witch apprentices next to her. These people had been with her for a long time. When she was in Europe, they tried their best to protect her safety, so they knew what she meant very well. They immediately formed a human wall and forcibly separated the unreasonable reporters. Then, Mu Hongyan walked through the middle calmly in her high heels like a queen. The reporters wanted to break through the human wall, but they couldn't. They could only watch Mu Hongyan walk past. Under the awe of her temperament, many people subconsciously put away their arrogance and lowered their heads. Tang Zhang's eyes were full of splendor. Mu Hongyan's temperament at the moment was very different from what he had known before. In his impression, she was more of a meticulous mother and a strong woman, but there was a big gap between her and the queen-like temperament at the moment. There was no doubt that her charm now was greater, more charming, and fascinating. Such a queen was also his woman. He couldn't help but feel proud. Chapter 1099. Mu Hongyan's bewitching smile was only for Tang Zheng. It disappeared in a flash, and no one else noticed it. When they walked through the door, they avoided most of the gazes and walked together. Mu Hongyan stopped in front and waited for Tang Zheng to hurry over. "Why are you back?" Tang Zheng stood in front of her and asked curiously. Tang Zheng's eyes flashed with a touch of deep affection, but he quickly returned to his indifferent appearance and said, "I just finished dealing with the relevant matters in Europe a few days ago and returned to Beijing last night. However, I was told that you had already left Beijing and came to the pharmaceutical factory. Of course, I couldn't sit back and do nothing when such a big thing happened in the pharmaceutical factory, so I rushed over without stopping." Tang Zheng suddenly understood. Looking at the imperceptible tiredness on her face, he said with heartache, "It's been hard on you." "It's not hard at all." King of Medicine also walked over quickly and said gratefully, "Xiao Mu, fortunately you came. This group of reporters is too difficult to deal with. If it weren't for you, I definitely wouldn't have been able to get away." Mu Hongyan smiled faintly and said, "Senior King of Medicine has worked hard. These things should have been handled by me. You only need to worry about the professional issues." King of Medicine sighed and said, "The situation this time is very serious. Even the reporters are here. I'm afraid things will get worse." That's not necessarily true. However, the situation now is indeed very serious. I'm afraid you don't know that the matter of this medical accident has already been exposed on the internet. Many people are talking about it, or rather, they are condemning us." Mu Hongyan's tone was calm, but these words were heard by Tang Zheng and King of Medicine. They looked at each other at the same time, unable to hide their surprise. The enemy was really insidious and cunning. They had already started rumors and caused trouble on the internet. The King of Medicine's face suddenly changed and he asked, "Then what should we do?" Mu Hongyan said calmly, "Senior King of Medicine, you don't have to worry about these things. I will take care of it. I will hold a press conference later to explain in detail what happened this time. I believe that there is absolutely nothing wrong with our medicine, right?" Obviously, Mu Hongyan was very confident in King of Medicine's professional skills. Although she did not know the details, her guess was not far from the truth. The King of Medicine nodded with relief. "We already have the preliminary results of the investigation. This time, someone deliberately set us up. He bribed an employee and poisoned the patient. We didn't discover it in time and finally lost a life, leading to such serious consequences." Mu Hongyan's face turned cold. He didn't know the details, but after hearing these words, he deeply felt the danger hidden within. Someone actually used such a despicable method to deal with them. If this could be tolerated, what could not? "Do you have a specific suspect?" "No, the employee who was bribed has been killed, and the clues are gone," the King of Medicine said regretfully. Tang Zheng said, "Let's go in first. You must be tired after such a long journey." Mu Hongyan nodded, and they went to the office together. This office was specially prepared for Mu Hongyan, but she didn't come here often. The enemy is very aggressive. If we don't find out who is behind this as soon as possible, it will be too passive for us, Mu Hongyan said impatiently as soon as she sat down. Tang Zheng and the King of Medicine certainly understood this point, but there were no clues from the pharmaceutical factory, so they could only investigate from the outside. Since this matter has been exposed on the internet, let's use technical means to find out where it first came from. Follow the vine to the melon and see if there are any clues, Tang Zheng suggested. Mu Hongyan nodded. This is one way. In addition, we must find a way to deal with public relations. The other party deliberately distorts the truth. We can't just let it be. We must let the public hear our voice. Since we have found out that there is a mole who maliciously poisoned the patient, we should make it public. The public will definitely understand that this matter was framed by someone and has nothing to do with us, the King of Medicine said. Mu Hongyan pondered for a moment, but shook her head and refused. No, this will only make people talk and be questioned. This matter happened in our territory. In any case, we can't absolve ourselves from the blame. Only by finding out who is behind the scenes can we really be cleared of suspicion. Mu Hongyan had a lot of experience in dealing with such matters. Since she said so, no one objected. The King of Medicine was concerned about the patient and said, I'll go and see the patient's condition first. The King of Medicine left, leaving only Tang Zheng and Mu Hongyan in the office. They looked at each other, and the atmosphere changed instantly. Mu Hongyan's queen-like demeanor disappeared. She took off the queen's mantle and became a mature and gentle woman again. Looking at the fatigue on her face, Tang Zheng painfully grabbed her hand. She leaned into his arms and felt his broad chest. It's really been hard on you this time. You haven't rested when you came back and this happened again. Tang Zheng hugged her slender waist and leaned his chin on her shoulder. He smelled the faint feminine scent on her face and felt sweet in his heart. Tang Zheng's hot breath hit Mu Hongyan's earlobe when he spoke. Her whole body tensed up, but she quickly relaxed, like a drifting boat that found a quiet bay. She smiled sweetly and said, This is my life. I've long been used to it. You are my woman. Seeing you work so hard makes my heart ache. Tang Zheng said softly. This sentence undoubtedly hit the softest part of Mu Hongyan's heart. After so many years, no one had ever said such words to her. Even in the past, her strong woman character had already been deeply rooted in people's hearts. Even if she was so busy that her feet didn't touch the ground, no one would say that they felt sorry for her. They would only envy and praise her ability. There was a saying that one could only see the essence of a person when they loved her. She was a strong woman on the surface and had the queen-like demeanor, but she was still a woman in her bones. In Tang Zheng's eyes, no matter how many halos and identities she only had one identity, and that was a woman, his woman. Mu Hongyan's eyes were covered with a layer of mist. During this period of time, the bitterness and hard work were all worth it. This sentence was worth 10,000 words of praise, and it couldn't be bought with money. Seeing that she didn't make a sound, Tang Zheng looked down and saw that she was acting strangely. His heart moved and he turned her around to look at her face to face. Their eyes met, filled with tenderness. Mu Hongyan was like a volcano. The passion that had been accumulating for a long time instantly erupted as she took the initiative to offer her fragrant lips. Tang Zheng's head rippled as he tasted her fragrant kiss. He couldn't help but become intoxicated as he tightly hugged her body. He wanted nothing more than to rub her into his body and become one with her. Mu Hongyan's cheeks were red and her breath was like orchids. However, she didn't want to separate and took as much as she wanted. After a long time, their lips parted and the two pairs of eyes stared at each other. Thousands of words were contained in this gaze. There was no need to say anything, but they understood each other's feelings. Mu Hongyan felt that she had lived for more than 20 years in vain. Looking at Tang Zheng, she felt that life was so wonderful and wonderful. All the hardships in the past were for the sake of reaping the rewards of today's life. Perhaps this was fate. The opponent this time is very powerful. We have a lot of work to do. Mu Hongyan said softly. You can rest assured that no matter who it is, we will find them and make them pay a painful price. Tang Zheng said resolutely. Then do you have any guesses who did it? The other party's methods are very skillful and ruthless. It's not an ordinary person. I can't guess for the time being. Tang Zheng thought for a while and said. No matter who it is, if we work together, we will definitely be able to defeat these rascals. Mu Hongyan was full of confidence. She couldn't help but hold Tang Zheng's hand tightly. At this time, footsteps sounded outside the door. Tang Zheng released his hands and Mu Hongyan reluctantly left his embrace. The door opened and a person hurriedly said, Chief Mu, the leader of the Food and Drug Administration is here. It is said that they are here to investigate this matter. They came so quickly. Mu Hongyan raised her eyebrows and immediately returned to normal. I'll go take a look. I'll go with you. Tang Zheng walked out with her and saw that the hall on the first floor was very noisy. A group of people wearing white shirts and black trousers, looking like officials, swaggered in, pointing and ordering people around. The King of Medicine had already gone up to greet this group of officials. There was no doubt that the King of Medicine had face, but this time it didn't seem to work. These people didn't give face to the King of Medicine. Instead, they were aggressive and threatened that the investigation team would be stationed in the pharmaceutical factory to carry out a comprehensive and detailed investigation. The King of Medicine argued, but he was obviously not good at words and arguments. He was not as eloquent as the officials and was forced to retreat. Clack, clack, clack. A burst of crisp sound of high heels hitting the ground rang out. The two sides of the argument were immediately attracted by this crisp sound and turned their heads to look at each other. Mu Hongyan, who was the housekeeper, walked towards them. Everyone couldn't hide the amazement in their eyes. What's going on? Mu Hongyan regained her queen-like demeanor. She was cold and proud, making people feel like they were looking up to a mountain. President Mu. The person who came obviously had done the investigation and recognized Mu Hongyan. Your company has a serious medical accident, and a life has been lost. Of course, we have to investigate thoroughly. This accident was caused by the new drug you applied. Therefore, our investigation team must obtain all the rights to access your relevant information, as well as the development and manufacturing process of the new drug. No. The King of Medicine couldn't wait to stop them. The new drug was the result of months of labor by him and countless staff members. If it was completely disclosed to the investigation team, their success would be made public. There was no need to talk about confidentiality. The most important thing about a drug was the prescription. If it was made public, others could copy it. This was absolutely not allowed. The investigation team looked at the King of Medicine with displeasure. If the other party wasn't a leading figure in Xinglin, they would have been furious. What's wrong with this? If such a serious accident is not investigated thoroughly, how can we explain it to the public? The other party scolded sternly. Mu Hongyan was a smart person. Of course, she immediately understood the intentions of the investigation team. She couldn't help but look at them suspiciously. This investigation team was also very strange. Usually, the official reaction speed was not so fast. This time, it was too strange. Chapter 1100. Since he had determined that the other party was abnormal, then it was even more impossible for him to release all sorts of data and prescriptions. Mu Hongyan argued, but the other party did not give up, and said sternly, if you don't cooperate, then I'll seal you up. Tang Zheng's eyes flashed. He took a step forward and stood in front of Mu Hongyan. Since he had determined that someone was trying to frame him, these people were naturally accomplices, so he would not be courteous. Using a chicken feather as an arrow would work in other places, but not in Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng sneered, and said disdainfully, let's see how you seal this place. And who are you? The other party stared at Tang Zheng suspiciously. Tang Zheng's reputation was illustrious, but to many people, he was still an unfamiliar face. For example, the few people in front of him who were showing off their might, they had not reached the level where they could know too much about Tang Zheng. Who I am is not important. If you know what's good for you, then get out of here. Go back and tell the person behind you that if you want to deal with me, then come at me openly. Playing such tricks is just child's play. Tang Zheng said straightforwardly. What are you talking about? I don't understand. You dare to speak such arrogant words and slander the country's public servants. Are you trying to rebel? If this big hat was placed on someone else's head, they might be afraid, but it has no effect on me. Scram! Tang Zheng shouted in a low voice, scaring the few of them so much that they staggered back. They looked at him in bewilderment, not knowing who he was. In the past, when they went to various enterprises, the enterprises would treat them like gods, but no one dared to go against them. This time, they saw a ghost. This young man was not afraid of them at all. Especially the aura emitted by the other party, it made their hearts tremble and they almost peed their pants. However, they had not completed their mission this time, so of course they could not escape with their tails between their legs. Their expressions turned cold, and with a gloomy face, they pointed at Tang Zheng and said, "You will pay for what you have done." Tang Zheng could not be bothered to waste his breath on them. He looked at the sorcerer tribe disciples beside him and said, "Throw them out." A few of the sorcerer tribe disciples grabbed the few of them, and before they could react, they walked out of the door with majestic strides. What are you doing? You are openly going against the government. You won't be able to bear the consequences. The other party finally reacted. He screamed and waved his hands in an attempt to break free, but he couldn't do anything about it. Seeing the group of people being carried out, the other people's faces changed. They looked at Tang Zheng with a complicated expression. This handsome guy's temper was too explosive, and he was too bold. Is that okay? Mu Hongyan asked worriedly. Tang Zheng didn't care. Since the other party is playing tricks and not playing by the rules, I naturally won't play by the rules with them. Don't worry, I'll handle everything. Mu Hongyan nodded gently and felt relieved. She knew that although Tang Zheng seemed to be reckless, he was actually very meticulous. He must have his own plans. The king of medicine's cheeks flushed red and he said angrily, "This group of people is too abominable. I will report it to the higher-ups and find out what is going on." The king of medicine was not a stupid person. He had already realized that the people from the Food and Drug Administration must have been instructed by someone. Otherwise, they wouldn't have come so quickly. It didn't make sense. The king of medicine immediately called to inquire, but after a round of calls, he fell silent. How is it? Mu Hongyan asked. The king of medicine looked suspicious and said in a low voice, "This matter is very big. It is said that the higher-ups have given orders to punish them severely and set an example." Example? Humph. Tang Zheng snorted. Which leader gave the order? The king of medicine looked gloomy. He used to think that he had a lot of influence in the upper circle. After all, he had treated many leaders. He didn't expect that at the critical moment, these leaders didn't care about their old friendship and instead gave him vague excuses. I don't know which leader it is. Tang Zheng thought about it. The only leader he had ever offended was probably that person. Some time ago, he even threatened him face to face. Could it be that the real culprit behind the scenes was him? You deal with the press conference first. I'll leave for a while. Tang Zheng's gaze inadvertently fell on the few people from the Food and Drug Administration who had been blasted out. He had an idea and said, "What are you going to do? Don't be impulsive." Mu Hongyan guessed a little and quickly advised. Tang Zheng smiled at her and said, "Don't worry, I know what to do." The people from the Food and Drug Administration got in the car and left dejectedly. Looking at the pharmaceutical factory from the rearview mirror, they had nowhere to vent their anger. "Director, what should we do?" someone asked. This director was the one who confronted Tang Zheng just now. He was the leader of this group of people. His eyes were red, and he said in exasperation, "Don't be fooled by their arrogance now. They will cry in the future. Yes, Director, we must not let them go." We have never suffered such a big grievance. The others echoed. The director's eyes flickered with uncertainty, unable to hide the sharpness in them. He was confident that this company was definitely finished. This was because this time, he had come under orders. He was not alone, but had a strong backing. This was not disclosed to the public, but when he thought of his backing, he felt proud and confident. In the near future, I will make them kneel in front of us and beg for mercy, kowtow and admit their mistakes. The director vowed. The few of them returned to their residence. Just as the director sat down, the door opened with a click. A person swaggered in. The director hurriedly stood up, and the arrogance on his face disappeared. He bowed slightly to the other party and said, "Mr. Yamada. How is it? Did you get the prescription?" Yamada's eyes were high. He directly sat down and asked. The director's expression darkened as he resentfully said, "There was a problem. The other party didn't cooperate, so the investigation was stopped." "You mean you didn't get the prescription?" Yamada stood up again with an unfriendly expression. "Not yet." The director stammered. Seeing Yamada's expression become more and more unsightly, he quickly added, "But in the end, we will definitely get it." Rice bucket. Yamada reprimanded without any trace of politeness. Although the director's face was red, he did not dare to refute. He lowered his head in shame. He usually acted arrogantly in front of others, but in front of Yamada, he did not have the confidence to do so. That was because he had taken a lot of benefits from Yamada. Of course, he couldn't refute him. Moreover, he vaguely knew that behind Yamada was the royal family of the island nation. This was not something he could provoke, so he could only swallow his anger. "We let you enter the pharmaceutical factory in the name of the investigation team so quickly because we wanted to get the prescription before the other party had time to react. Otherwise, we spent so much effort and planned for so long, but all our hard work would have gone to waste. Do you understand?" Yamada reprimanded unceasingly. The director's head was almost touching the ground. He said submissively, "Yes, I understand. This is all my fault. I will definitely think of a way to make up for it. You have already attracted the other party's attention. How do you want to make up for it? Since the other party has already stopped you, they will definitely be prepared. Even if your investigation team successfully enters the factory, you will definitely not be able to find anything useful, let alone the prescription. Then what should we do?" The director did not know what to do. Yamada pondered for a moment and asked, "Who was stopping you today?" Describe the situation at that time. The director did not know what this would do, but he still tried to recall the situation at that time and described it one by one. "You said that there was a very arrogant young man who stopped you?" Yamada raised his eyebrows and asked with a shocked expression. The director nodded blankly, "Yes, I don't know who this kid is." Mu Hongyan and King of Medicine seemed to listen to him. "This is simply nonsense. Is he called Tang Zheng?" Yamada thought of something and asked with a frown. The director shook his head, "I don't know." "You don't know anything? What the hell are you doing?" Yamada roared in exasperation. The director trembled and did not dare to talk back. It must be Tang Zheng, as only he would dare to do such a thing. Only he would be able to make Mu Hongyan and the Medicine King listen to his orders. The director said decisively. You are from an island nation, but you know quite a lot." A voice suddenly sounded in the room. Kazuaki Yamada was so scared that he trembled all over. He looked around as if he had seen a ghost. The director thought that he was hallucinating. There was clearly no third person in the room. How could there be a voice? Yamada was obviously more knowledgeable. His whole body tensed up and he was ready to attack. He looked around and asked cautiously, "Where are you?" "I am right in front of you. Can't you see me?" The voice sounded again. Yamada only felt a blur in front of his eyes. Sure enough, a person appeared in front of him. He did not think and punched at the person, but it was like a clay ox entering the sea. This punch did not have any effect at all. He turned pale with horror and stared at the person in front of him. Sure enough, he was not much different from the rumors. You are Tang Zheng? Tang Zheng looked at the other party coldly. Even in his dreams, he would never have thought that the mastermind behind this matter would actually be the island country. The island country would actually painstakingly set up this trap for his prescription. Obviously, the island nation must have heard some news, so they wanted to get their hands on the prescription. This batch of new drugs would change the current medical structure. It would be an epoch-making advancement. It was no wonder that the island nation had deliberately planned all of this. The most abhorrent thing was that the people in the Food and Drug Administration were in cahoots with the island nation. They were simply traitors. Therefore, he looked at the director with increasingly cold eyes without any emotion. The director was not frightened by this gaze. Instead, as if he had found a backer, he shouted, "Mr. Yamada, this is the kid who stopped us. You have to teach him a lesson and let him know how powerful we are." Yamada did not answer because his nerves were completely tense. He did not allow the slightest distraction. Chapter 1101. Seeing that Yamada was indifferent, the director's face turned red and he anxiously urged, "Mr. Yamada, don't just stand there. Hurry up and teach him a lesson." "Shut up." Yamada yelled impatiently at him. The director immediately became like a little lamb. He shrunk his neck as if he had been wronged and did not dare to make any noise. Tang Zheng looked at him coldly and glanced at the director. The director's eyes turned red as he glared at Tang Zheng. However, he did not dare to act rashly. "Island Nation man, who is the one behind you? Is it the royal family? Or is it someone else?" Tang Zheng asked preemptively. Yamada's body was as stiff as a wooden stick. He took a deep breath and said, "I am me. Hang, even though I originally looked down on you, but with your qualifications, you do not have the qualifications to contend against me. Just who is behind you, tell me the truth, and I can let you die a little faster." Tang Zheng said without any trace of politeness. He never thought of letting him go. Yamada was from the island nation and he was the one who asked for it. How could he be merciful? When the director heard this, his body trembled and he laughed as if he had heard the funniest joke in the world. He pointed at Tang Zheng and said, You are crazy. What right do you have to say such words? Do you know who Mr. Yamada is? Who is he? He is." The director was proud and was about to show off. Suddenly, the blade flashed and the director's eyes widened. He could not help but look at Yamada. You, he could not say a word. Blood spurted out from between his fingers and splattered all over the ground. Boom! The director fell to the ground and died with his eyes wide open. He probably did not understand why Yamada would kill him. It was because Yamada wanted to keep his secret. Tang Zheng's eyes flashed. He did not expect Yamada to be so ruthless. Although the director deserved to die, he was still from the Huaxia. How could he not be angry when he died in the hands of someone from the island nation? You are courting death. He reached out with his big hand, directly grabbing towards the director's neck. However, a blade light lit up again, but it was not aimed at Tang Zheng, but at Yamada's own neck. Blood flew out, and a sinister smile appeared on Yamada's face, as if he was mocking Tang Zheng. Another one who is not afraid of death. Tang Zheng's hair stood on end. Do you think I can't do anything? Yamada's breath. Tang Zheng grabbed his head and used the soul-searching technique. A person's figure immediately appeared in his mind. Junko. Tang Zheng immediately recognized this person. Junko was the direct disciple of the imperial teacher of the island. After the imperial teacher fell, she submitted to the 100 Transformation Star Lord. She also appeared in the last imperial city battle. However, later on, she took the opportunity to escape and saved her little life. It was better to let them investigate openly. As for the confidential information, they had already hidden it in the afternoon. the investigation team could not find anything useful. This way, they could ease the conflict, so why not? In the end, Tang Zheng was persuaded by Mu Hongyan and did not stop the investigation team. As for the death of the director and Yamada, no one came to investigate. There was no evidence, so they could not pin it on Tang Zheng. Moreover, the death of the director and a person from an island nation was intriguing. Naturally, they did not dare to make a big deal out of it. In the middle of the night, Mu Hongyan finished dealing with the investigation team and the pharmaceutical factory. She returned to the hotel. Tang Zheng stayed by her side the whole time. He watched as she dealt with all kinds of troublesome matters with great ease. He could not help but admire her. In terms of cultivation, he was much better than Mu Hongyan. However, in these professional matters, Mu Hongyan was much better than him. At the door of the room, Mu Hongyan looked at Tang Zheng and said, "Stay with me for a while." Tang Zheng nodded and entered the room with her. Mu Hongyan rubbed her temples. It was hard to hide her exhaustion. She did not have the aura of a queen from before. "I'll lie down. I'll give you a massage," Tang Zheng said softly. Mu Hongyan lay down on the sofa. Her head rested on Tang Zheng's thigh. Her slender and exquisite body was completely displayed in front of Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng had no distracting thoughts in his mind as his hands landed on her temples. His two thumbs gently pressed, and a trace of true qi flowed along the surface of her skin. A comfortable feeling gradually spread from the outside to the inside, gradually invading her entire body. Tang Zheng's hands slid down and fell on her shoulders. Although there was a layer of clothes, he could still feel the roundness of her shoulders. Tang Zheng's strength was just right. Mu Hongyan could not help but close her eyes. Her eyebrows relaxed and she looked very satisfied. "Have you learned how to massage? Your technique is so good. It's even better than those professional masseuses." Mu Hongyan's lips curled into a smile as she softly asked. "I learned it all by myself," Tang Zheng said with a smile. Mu Hongyan's eyes opened a slit. She rolled her eyes at him and said, "You only know how to boast. Whether I'm boasting or not, aren't you experiencing it yourself? It's just a so-so." Mu Hongyan's eyes flashed with a mischievous smile as she deliberately said, "You dare to say my technique is just a so-so? See how I'll take care of you." Tang Zheng's playful heart rose as he grabbed her chest. Mu Hongyan tenderly cried out as her body involuntarily straightened. Her eyes widened as she asked, "What are you doing? How's my technique?" Tang Zheng deliberately asked. Mu Hongyan bit her lips and said, "A so-so." Tang Zheng cried out and said, "You still dare to say a so-so? It seems like I'll have to let you have a taste of my true technique." His hands began to move. They were no longer limited to a certain area. His hands moved up and down. Mu Hongyan immediately tenderly cried out. Her breath was like orchids, but she was not willing to admit defeat. She flirtatiously said, "You're just a restless and disobedient monkey. If I'm a monkey, then you're a female monkey." Tang Zheng went straight to the point as his big hand burrowed into her clothes. Mu Hongyan's cheeks were flushed red as if she was drunk. She buried her head in Tang Zheng's arms and shyly said, "Nonsense, I'm not a female monkey. If you say I'm a monkey, then you're a female monkey. If you're a monkey, I'm not a female monkey. Are you?" "Ah!" Mu Hongyan cried out in surprise. Her eyes were about to drip water as she bit her lips to resist the waves of strange feelings coming from her body. She wanted to clench her teeth and deny it, but she could not resist Tang Zheng's various methods. She could only submit and beg for mercy. "I am." "Ha ha ha." Tang Zheng laughed. "And a beautiful female monkey." "Don't, I want to take a shower first," Mu Hongyan exclaimed. "Let's take a shower together." Tang Zheng picked her up. "I want to see if you've lost weight after being in Europe for so long." "I've gained weight." "Where are you gaining weight?" "Here." "It's good that you're gaining weight here." Tang Zheng smiled mischievously. Mu Hongyan was so embarrassed that she could not show her face. However, she was picked up by Tang Zheng and had nowhere to run. After struggling a few times, she let him do whatever he wanted. Not long after, the sound of water splashing could be heard in the bathroom. There were also strange sounds mixed in. The two monkeys were fighting to their heart's content. They had to decide a winner. Later, the battlefield moved from the bathroom to the sofa, the big bed, and the window. Their fierce battle was left in every corner. Chapter 1102. The next day, the two of them felt refreshed. Mu Hongyan's pink face was like a flower that had been nourished. She became more beautiful and dazzling, attracting even more people's attention. In the pharmaceutical factory, the investigation team did not rest for the entire night. They had been reviewing all kinds of information and investigating all kinds of data. They had put in a lot of effort and were determined to find out the truth. Looking at the busy crowd, Tang Zheng's heart moved. These people won't leave for a while. We can't just wait like this. We have to take the initiative. The king of medicine and Mu Hongyan looked at him curiously and asked, "How do we take the initiative?" "Since we already know that this matter is related to the island nation, I'll go find them if they don't come out." Tang Zheng's eyes flashed with a bright light. The island nation's people are hiding. Huaxia is so big. It's too easy to hide a few. How are we going to find them? Mu Hongyan asked doubtfully. Tang Zheng's mouth showed a trace of an evil smile. They can come to Huaxia. Of course, I can also visit the island nation. They can't hide even if they want to. What? You want to go to the island nation? It's too dangerous. That's a country. How can you be their opponent with your own strength? Besides, there's also the celestial ruler. His cultivation is higher than yours. If you go, you'll be like a sheep in a tiger's mouth. Absolutely not. Mu Hongyan firmly refused. The king of medicine also hurriedly nodded and agreed with Mu Hongyan's words. Tang Jing smiled calmly. Don't worry. According to Tian Chanzi's analysis, the celestial ruler is very likely to be hiding in Huaxia. He's not in the island nation. That won't do either. That's an entire country we're talking about, not just a few people or a few dozen people. Mu Hongyan still insisted. Tang Zheng's eyes became gentle. He looked at her affectionately and took the initiative to hold her hand. The king of medicine was still next to them. Mu Hongyan's face turned red. She tried to break free, but found that Tang Zheng's hand was like a vice, and she couldn't break free at all. Mu Hongyan was helpless. She rolled her eyes at him and could only let it be. The king of medicine looked at this scene in surprise. It was as if he had discovered a new world. He did not realize that these two people had such a relationship. Cough, cough. He coughed awkwardly and said, "Master, I'll go check on the investigation team first." After that, without even turning his head, he slipped away and left. Mu Hongyan's cheeks became redder, like the sunset on the horizon. She said bitterly, "It's all because of you. You're so bold. How can I face the king of medicine in the future?" She and the king of medicine had known each other for a long time. Now that she exposed her relationship with Tang Zheng, it was naturally very awkward. Tang Zheng shrugged. Others will find out sooner or later. What's there to be afraid of? It's not a shameful thing. Moreover, the king of medicine is not an outsider. He won't do anything to others. Don't worry. What was done could not be undone. Mu Hongyan was helpless, but there was a trace of sweetness in her heart. Regarding the relationship between the two of them, Tang Zheng did not try to hide. This was a form of respect for her, otherwise, if he acted like a thief, then she would have a knot in her heart. Mu Hongyan took a deep breath and calmed down a little. She did not give up and said, "You really shouldn't go. It's too dangerous." Tang Zheng gently squeezed her hand and said with a faint smile, "You really don't have to worry. Even if I can't beat him, I'll run away. Don't you think I don't have the ability to run away? You're really a monkey that doesn't let people worry. Looking at his firm eyes, Mu Hongyan knew that it was useless to persuade him. She pinched him fiercely and said coquettishly. Tang Jing chuckled and said, "When I come back, I'll show you how powerful this monkey is." Mu Hongyan could not help but recall the ridiculous thing last night. She wanted to find a hole to hide in. Last night, the two of them unlocked a lot of new positions. It was very embarrassing. However, she could not resist this monkey's coaxing and pestering. In the end, she could only fulfill his wish. Mwah. Suddenly, Mu Hongyan's face was kissed. She turned pale with fright. She looked around and exclaimed, "What are you doing?" "Don't worry, no one saw," Tang Zheng said with a sly smile. Mu Hongyan was helpless. She reluctantly said, "Monkey, go and come back quickly. I'll wait for you to come back." Looking at her affectionate appearance, Tang Jing shook his head. He quickly suppressed his restless thoughts. He waved his hand and turned to leave. Island Nation was not far from Huaxia. It was only 2 to 3 hours by plane. Of course, he would not take the plane. Instead, he directly flew on his sword. His speed was not slower than a plane. He shuttled through the clouds and arrived at the airspace of the island nation. Whoosh! Suddenly, a whistling sound came from above. A huge gust of wind swept over. The sun in the sky was blocked by a huge thing. He slightly narrowed his eyes. He had already guessed what was going on, because the loud roar of the engine made everything clear. Looking up, it was indeed a plane. It was a fighter jet. It swooped down from the sky and attacked directly. However, he did not know that the island nation was in chaos. Just now, the fighter jet detected a person flying high in the sky like an eagle. His speed was extremely fast. When this information was passed back, the military was naturally in disbelief. They immediately ordered an interception. However, discussions and analysis were in full swing. Some people thought that this was Huaxia's mecha weapon. After all, Huaxia's mecha was no longer a secret. Island Nation had already started to develop mecha. However, a stable source of energy had always been a big problem. They did not have demon beast cores, so naturally, they could not drive mecha. However, this judgment was immediately rejected. Mecha were giants. It was impossible for them to shrink to the size of an ordinary person in such a short time. Since it was not a mecha, then what could it be? Could it really be a person? Could it be that they saw a ghost? The fighter jet received the order and immediately began to intercept. When it swooped close to Tang Zheng, the pilot clearly saw that it was a living person. Moreover, he was not wearing any high-tech equipment. He was just wearing ordinary clothes. How was this possible? At such a height, the air was already very thin. How could a person survive? Moreover, how could a person fly? It was not like he was a bird. The pilot immediately discovered the War Soul sword under Tang Zheng's feet. Could it be that this sword was a flying device? The pilot's brain could not analyze all of this. Only by intercepting him could he solve all of this mystery. The pilot first shouted in the island nation's language, announcing that he had entered the island nation's airspace. Please stop this invasion immediately and follow him to land. Seeing that the other party did not respond, he immediately shouted in Huaxia's language. This time, the other party finally reacted. He turned his head and looked at him. The pilot could clearly feel the cold killing intent in the other party's eyes. The pilot's heart turned cold. He quickly said, "If you don't listen to orders, I will shoot you down." Annoying fly. Tang Jing frowned and waved his hand impatiently. A strong wind whistled and directly hit the wing of the plane. Boom! The fighter jet seemed to have been hit by a huge airflow and kept shaking. It almost lost control. The pilot was so scared that he cried out. Fortunately, he was an experienced pilot. Otherwise, he would have died. He was shocked, but also angered. He said, "Baka, I will shoot you down." Whiz! A missile locked onto Tang Zheng and flew out, heading straight for Tang Zheng. "Hey, you still want to give me a missile? I'll play with you." Tang Zheng's mouth revealed a sinister smile. With a thought, the War Soul's sword immediately changed direction, drawing a big circle in the air and flying towards the fighter jet. The missile firmly locked onto Tang Zheng. Even if he changed direction, the missile would still chase after him. It also turned a circle and flew back. The pilot stared blankly as Tang Zheng flew towards him. He was shocked and hurriedly pulled up the plane in an attempt to avoid Tang Zheng. However, how could Tang Zheng let him do as he wished? He directly stuck to the belly of the plane. No matter what the pilot did to dodge, it was useless. He could only watch as the missile whistled towards him. "Ah, no!" The pilot let out a hysterical scream. Boom! The huge explosion drowned out his screams. The plane turned into a ball of flames and quickly fell into the sea below. Tang Zheng had already left the plane a few seconds before the missile hit it. He stood at the side and watched the show unscathed. "Hee, you want to stop me with this ability?" As soon as he finished speaking, there was another rumbling sound. Another fighter jet flew out from the clouds. There's actually more than one plane. Tang Zheng's eyes flashed as he stared at the fighter jet. This time, the other party did not shout, but attacked without saying anything. So. The three missiles whistled through the air, leaving trails of flames behind them. Tang Zheng didn't try to escape. Instead, he stopped in midair and let the missile fly over as if he was scared silly. The pilot had a smug look on his face as he began to clamor. Tang Zheng slowly took out the heaven-shocking bow and the sun-shooting arrow, knocked the arrow and aimed it at the missile. Whang! He loosened his fingers, and the bowstring trembled. The shooting sun arrow left the bowstring and hit a missile, exploding with a loud bang. The scorching heat waves seemed to evaporate the air, and even the clouds not far away were torn apart. The shooting sun arrow flew out of the flames and flew towards the second missile. With a loud explosion, the second missile also turned into a ball of flames, and then the third missile. Without any fancy moves, the three missiles exploded one after another, and all the attacks were nullified. The pilot stared at the scene in bewilderment. With his brain, he could not understand how an arrow could have such power. Ah! Suddenly, the pilot shouted, because the shooting sun arrow was flying towards him again. He piloted the fighter jet, hurriedly dodging and flipping non-stop. However, all of this was futile as the shooting sun arrow was connected to Tang Zheng's mind and could be controlled like an arm. So with a flash of sword light, the shooting sun arrow shot into the cockpit, directly piercing through the pilot's chest, and then came out from the belly of the fighter jet and returned to Tang Zheng's hand. The fighter jet that had lost its pilot's control was like a meteorite. It rapidly fell from the sky and into the sea, breaking into pieces and sinking into the sea. Chapter 1103. Two fighter jets fell to prevent more fighter jets from attacking. Tang Zheng lowered his altitude and flew at a low altitude. He quickly swept across the sea and landed on land. As for the chaos on the island, he did not care. Let them make wild guesses. He was no stranger to the island nation. His trip to the east this time was to lure the snake out of its hole. Once the Hundred Faces Starlord knew that he was stirring up trouble in the island nation, he would definitely not be able to continue hiding. After all, the island nation was his base camp. If the island nation was completely destroyed, it would not be good for the Hundred Faces Starlord. His target was very clear. He was going for the Emperor. Only the Emperor could affect the Hundred Faces Starlord. As for what he told Mu Hongyan that he would not face the Hundred Faces Starlord head-on, it was not true. The island nation was not far from Huaxia. Once the Hundred Faces Starlord received the news, he might come to help. Then, the two sides would definitely meet. The Hundred Faces Starlord was stronger than him, but Tang Zheng was not a dead end. The last time the Shura escaped from his control, it gave him an idea. The Shura was a huge unstable factor, but this was for others. He could rely on the Ksitigarbha Sutra to suppress him. So, once he was really in a life and death situation, he could completely release the Shura. This was the island nation, not Huaxia. He did not need to worry about causing too much damage or influence. He went to the Kokyo with ease. There were many palaces. The destroyed palaces had been rebuilt, and they were even more magnificent. He used his illusion technique and easily deceived the eyes of the layers of guards. Now, the security of the imperial palace was even tighter, as if it was an iron bucket. But to Tang Zheng, it was as if he had entered a no-man's land. He strolled leisurely, as if he was strolling in his own backyard. He walked past the palaces one by one, looking for the emperor. Suddenly, his gaze turned cold. He saw that the palace in the deepest part of the Kokyo was very heavily guarded. It was obviously not on the same level as the other places. His eyes lit up. This must be the emperor's residence. A gust of wind blew past. The guards looked around but didn't find anything out of the ordinary. Then, they stood in place like javelins, completely unaware that a person had sneaked into the palace. In the main hall, there was a person sitting in the main hall. The others stood below and respectfully reported to him. Looking at the people in the hall from afar, Tang Zheng narrowed his eyes slightly. The emperor was not an outsider, but an acquaintance. The original emperor was already dead, and the new emperor was the younger brother of the old emperor. His name was Hirohito. Back then, he had met Tang Zheng in the northeast sinkhole. He was the leader of the ninjas. Hirohito had fallen into the hands of the government. They interrogated him for a long time, but they couldn't pry open his mouth. In the end, they exchanged benefits with the island nation and released Hirohito back to his country. After Hirohito came to power, there was a drastic change in the policy towards China. The relationship between the two countries fell into deep water and fell to the freezing point. The hostility between the two countries intensified. However, the island nation could not compete with Huaxia in terms of military power or national strength. No matter how angry they were, they could only hold it in. Looking at Hirohito from afar, Tang Zheng felt that his aura had undergone an earth-shattering change compared to before. Back then, he was already a martial scholar, and now it seemed that he had broken through to the martial king realm. Without a doubt, this rapid improvement was the work of the Hundred Faces Star-Lord. The emperor had the cultivation of the martial king realm, so his authority was naturally great. Ordinary people did not dare to resist him. His strength had completely surpassed the emperor's. In such a small country, the general public was almost obedient to his orders. Although it had only been a short time, he had already eliminated dissidents and integrated his strength. Those who followed him would prosper, and those who opposed him would die. Hirohito's only wish was to fulfill the long-cherished wish of his ancestors. With an army pressing down on the border, he would invade Huaxia again and occupy that vast land. The officials respectfully listened to his teachings. They didn't even dare to breathe loudly. They could only keep talking and bowing their heads. Seeing this scene, Tang Zheng frowned. He had a whole new level of respect for Hirohito. He had thought that Hirohito was just a martial artist. He didn't expect him to be able to govern the country so well. This was a huge threat. If he wasn't eliminated, then he would definitely be a huge threat to Huaxia in the future. As for the huge impact of assassinating the emperor, he didn't care at all. It wasn't like he had never done such a thing before. The first time was unfamiliar, the second time was familiar. Step by step, he walked towards Hirohito. The officials and guards did not notice him at all. He arrived in front of Hirohito as if he was in an uninhabited land, only 3 meters away from him. Suddenly, Hirohito turned his head and stared in the direction of Tang Zheng. His eyes emitted a terrifying light as he roared, "Who is it?" Like a clap of thunder, this loud roar woke everyone up. The surrounding guards rushed over like tigers, leopards, and wolves. Although they couldn't see anything, Hirohito's gaze had already pointed in the direction. These guards were well trained and didn't slack off because they couldn't see anyone. They were all ninjas and understood that it wasn't impossible to be invisible. After all, there was such a method in ninjutsu. However, this person was invisible in front of everyone and escaped from almost everyone's sight. This ability was really extraordinary. The person had arrived, but the hidden weapons had already arrived. Swish, 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 after a series of air-breaking sounds, the hidden weapons flew towards the place where Tang Zheng was standing from all directions. Clang, clang, clang. Sparks flew in all directions and the sound of metal colliding rang out. Everyone began to shout, there was actually someone here. Assassin! Someone loudly shouted. The guards outside the palace couldn't wait to break through the door and attack. Tang Zheng couldn't understand the island nation's language, but this didn't hinder his actions. With a thought, he removed the illusion and exposed himself to everyone's eyes. It's you! Hirohito roared in surprise. His eyes were as big as a cow's as he stared at Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng's lips curled up and said, it's me. Long time no see. I handed you over to the government and in the end I actually let you return to your country. This is my mistake. If I knew this would happen, I wouldn't have let you live. Hirohito could speak Hua-Xia language so he understood Tang Zheng's meaning. He couldn't help but fly into a rage. He suddenly slapped the throne and shouted himself hoarse, you caused such a big trouble in the island nation and you still dare to come here. This time you will definitely not be able to return. Do you have the ability? Tang Zheng jokingly asked. Hirohito's strength had greatly increased and he had reached the martial king realm. His confidence had greatly increased and he almost believed that besides the 100-change Star Lord, he was the king of the heavens. So when he saw Tang Zheng, he wasn't afraid. Instead, he became restless and decided to kill Tang Zheng in the main hall. Humph, this is my Kokyo. Everyone here is my people. You won't be able to escape even if you have wings. Do you think you still have a chance to live? Hirohito loudly reprimanded. Tang Zheng shrugged and said, all right, since you're so confident, I'll let you experience what it means to be full of ambition and show that you're skinny. Tang Zheng's eyes turned cold. His killing intent surged as he strolled towards the numerous guards. Baka, kill him! Hirohito roared. Ah! The bodyguards roared and brandished their katanas. They surged toward Tang Zheng like a tide. It was as if a monstrous wave was crashing toward Tang Zheng. Heaven flying immortal. Tang Zheng let out a low roar. The battle's soul transformed into a dazzling sword light and flew into the crowd. In an instant, the roaring stopped abruptly, as if someone had grabbed their throats. Blood splattered everywhere, and the sound of people falling to the ground rose and fell one after another. In the blink of an eye, a large number of guards fell to the ground. Blood flowed and dyed the ground red. Blood flowed like a river. Tang Zheng's eyes were filled with killing intent. He did not show any mercy. He controlled his sword to kill, as if he was a god of death. When the others saw this scene, they were stunned. Some of the officials were so scared that they peed their pants and sat on the ground. Their entire bodies were sore and weak. They could no longer get up. Their cheeks were as white as a sheet of paper. Hirohito subconsciously grabbed onto his throne, his eyelids twitching. It seemed to be different from what he had imagined. Moreover, it was extremely different. However, he did not plan to admit defeat. He suddenly stood up, his hair and beard fluttering. He was not angry, but his clothes moved without the wind. With a flash of his feet, he tried to attack Tang Zheng. However, a few officials who still had a trace of strength hurriedly hugged him and begged, Your Majesty, please leave quickly. This person is too strong. If he kills all the guards, then he will deal with you. Do you think I'm afraid of him? I want to fight with him for 300 rounds and let him know how powerful I am. I want him to be a ghost under my blade. Hirohito said solemnly. The officials were in tears and snot. Their hearts were about to jump out of their throats as they continued to plead, "No, Your Majesty, this person is too powerful. We just received news that 2 of our fighter jets were shot down by one person in the air. I'm afraid it was done by him. He is no longer human. He can fly." Flying in the air? Hirohito was shocked. He had seen the 100 Faces Star-Lord use this magical technique. At that time, he was shocked. However, he did not expect that Tang Zheng would also know this technique. Therefore, he subconsciously stopped and looked at Tang Zheng in disbelief. The officials did not know what flying in the air was, but they desperately hugged him. Hirohito's expression kept changing. He watched as the guards became fewer and fewer. If he delayed any longer, then Tang Zheng might really have the strength to deal with him. Tang Zheng even knew how to fly in the air, then he might not be his opponent. Thinking about this, he was angry and helpless. Back then, he was not a match for Tang Zheng in the sky pit. Now, in his own palace, he actually had to flee. This was simply a great humiliation. There was probably no other emperor who was as sullen as him. However, when he thought of the previous emperor who died, his heart turned cold. He quickly calmed down. He was not an idiot and would not really do something that would lead to his own death. Since he knew that he was not a match for him, then the best plan was to escape. It was more important to protect his life first. "Alright, then I'll go first. You guys stay behind. You must delay him." After the emperor finished speaking, he rushed out of the side door without looking back. He ran away so fast that only an afterimage was left behind. The officials stared blankly at his back. This change was too fast. Why didn't he bring them along to escape? Chapter 1104. Tang Zheng suddenly turned his head, and discovered that the heavenly emperor Hirohito had already left. His eyelids twitched, and he snorted, "You want to escape just like that?" He had originally thought that since the other party was the heavenly emperor, he would still have some courage to fight back. He never thought that he would be so timid, not even having the courage to fight, and had already fled in panic. These eyesores still want to continue pestering me? Go to hell. Tang Zheng's eyes burst out with a terrifying light. It was breathtaking. The war soul sword flew out one after another of dazzling sword flowers, scattering into the crowd. Puff puff puff, a series of sharp sounds of swords slicing through skin rang out one after another, as if they were playing a beautiful tune. However, this was a tune that could take one's life. The guards in front of him were swept away. Tang Zheng swaggered through the crowd and chased out of the palace. Outside the palace was a huge plaza with a wide field of vision. Tang Zheng immediately locked onto Hirohito, who had already escaped far away, and with a leap, he was about to chase after him. On the contrary, countless people rushed out from all directions of the plaza and swarmed towards Tang Zheng. They were like ants, densely packed, causing one's hair to stand on end. However, Tang Zheng was not an elephant. No matter how many ants there were, they would not be able to nibble at him, because he did not give them a chance. War Soul Sword. Tang Zheng bellowed. The War Soul Sword flew into the air, riding on the sword, directly flying over the crowd. The ant-like guards stared blankly at this scene, their eyes filled with shock and despair. What was the use of having more people on their side? There was no place for them to use their skills. "Hirohito, where do you think you're going?" Hearing this voice, Hirohito was so scared that his liver and gallbladder trembled. He subconsciously turned his head and saw that Tang Zheng was only a few meters away from him. He sighed in his heart, knowing that there was nowhere to run. With a tap of his foot, the bluestone tiles on the ground shattered. He stopped in his tracks and abruptly turned around. Without saying a word, a string of cold light flew out from his hand and shot towards Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng's pupils shrank. The attack this time was not as soft as the other guards. It was as if they had not eaten. Hirohito was a martial king. If he was not careful, he would be at a disadvantage. He hurriedly brought out his holy armor shield. Dang, dang, dang. Those cold lights were like tickles to him, not leaving a single mark on his holy armor shield. Tang Zheng looked down at Hirohito mockingly and said, "What other tricks do you have? Use them all." Hirohito gritted his teeth. His eyes looked like they were about to spit fire. He roared, "Baka, I'm going to tear you into pieces." Really? Since you have this kind of determination, it is impolite not to reciprocate. I promise you, I will also tear your corpse into 10,000 pieces. You should be the first heavenly emperor to die like this, and your name will go down in history. You should be happy. Tang Zheng said sarcastically without holding back. Hirohito was like an active volcano. With a glare, he completely erupted. He opened his mouth wide and let out a roar that seemed to come from the abyss. Kill. Tang Zheng's expression was cold as ice. He stepped on the air and descended from the sky. His battle spirit quickly slashed out. The overflowing sword chi caused the ground to crack like a spider web. Hirohito was at the center of the sword chi. He felt as if his entire body was enveloped by the sword chi. It was as if he was being cut by 1,000 blades. He hurriedly circulated his energy to resist the pain. At the same time, a cold light flashed in his hand, and a katana, which seemed to have been taken out of a 10,000-year-old glacier, appeared in his hand. This cold air was the murderous aura condensed from killing countless people. Whoosh! With a slash of the blade, a hole was cut open in the sword chi. Hirohito charged forward, his beard and hair fluttering. He was incomparably berserk, and with a hysterical roar, he closed the distance between him and Tang Zheng. Clang! The sword and saber clashed, and the shockwave spread out in all directions. The guards who had gathered were thrown off their horses and screamed miserably. Many of them died in the shockwave. In the battle between the martial king and the Yuanning realm, ordinary warriors and cultivators could not interfere at all. If they insisted on getting involved, they would instead become sacrificial lambs. This group of guards had become sacrificial lambs. However, the aftermath of this confrontation was not over. When the shockwave produced by the collision of the sword and saber spread out, everyone saw a scene. Countless skeletons accompanied the shockwave and surged in all directions like a tide. Skeleton. Tang Zheng's gaze turned cold, and he was slightly surprised. If it was an ordinary person, they would have been scared witless by this scene. In a battle between experts, a moment of absent-mindedness was enough to be fatal. However, Tang Zheng had seen the resurrection of the giant's bones in the prehistoric heavenly tomb, and he had also been to the ghost realm. How could he be frightened by this scene? The heavenly emperor Hirohito did not know about this, and thought that his attack had worked. His figure flashed, and like a blade cutting through water, the katana slashed towards Tang Zheng's neck. The cold aura of the blade caused people to tremble. However, Tang Zheng did not feel much, the corner of his eyes slightly raised, his wrist slightly shook, and the war soul sword rose from the bottom. Puff! A long line of blood spurted out from his chest and abdomen. The muscles on his face were almost twisted together as he bared his teeth, like a ferocious ghost with a green face. You! How is this possible? Never in his wildest dreams would he have thought that Tang Zheng would not be affected at all. His katana was an ancient blade, one that was even more ancient than the demon blade Muramasa. It was the masterpiece of an ancient refining master, and after that, it was passed down for thousands of years, the most famous of which was in the hands of a famous tyrant. He soaked this blade in blood every day, and used it to cut off hundreds and thousands of heads, gathering hundreds and thousands of vengeful spirits. One could imagine how evil it was. Finally, when using this blade to attack, it could cause the enemy to hallucinate, greatly increasing the effect of the attack. It was an absolute weapon that could kill in one strike. Hirohito had also experimented many times, and was very clear about this effect, so he chose it as his own blade. It was a pity that this tried and tested weapon did not have much effect on Tang Zheng. On the contrary, Tang Zheng took advantage of the situation and counterattacked, almost cutting open Hirohito's stomach. It was only a hair's breadth away. Hirohito secretly thought that he was lucky, but he was also scared and broke out in a cold sweat. He did not know that this was Tang Jing deliberately showing mercy, because he did not want to kill Hirohito immediately. Hirohito was just a bait, and could be easily killed at any time. Capturing him and using him to lure the snake out of its hole, the key was to catch the big fish, 100 Transformation Star-Lord. Hirohito clenched his teeth and quickly retreated, trying to avoid Tang Jing's second round of attacks. But Tang Jing did not let him do as he wished. With a wave of his long sword, the skeleton phantom disappeared, and his big hand reached out, directly grabbing Hirohito's neck. Escape! Hirohito roared, and unexpectedly used the escape technique of ninjutsu. Tang Jing's eyes flashed with a trace of ridicule. He was no stranger to ninjutsu, and said, "Playing this kind of little trick in front of me, you are really showing off in front of an expert. Show yourself." With a roar, the War Soul sword slashed towards the void, causing the air to tremble, and a figure appeared. Hirohito was in a sorry state as he looked at Tang Jing in shock. He did not expect that his country's ninjutsu, which had been passed down for so many years, would not be of any use. "Come here." With a thought, Tang Jing used the swallowing the sky technique. A small black hole appeared in his palm, and a huge suction force immediately locked onto Hirohito. Hirohito was shocked. "What are you doing?" Compared to the last time he fought with Tang Jing, this time he was in a very sorry state. He did not even have the strength to fight back. How did the other party cultivate? He originally thought that with the help of 100 Transformation Star-Lord, his cultivation had advanced by leaps and bounds, and could be said to have reached the limit. But after experiencing this battle, he realized that he was a frog at the bottom of a well. Hirohito was completely afraid. "Obediently surrender. Even if you flip the sky, you won't be able to escape from my 5-finger mountain," Tang Jing said in disdain. His 5 fingers closed together, and the suction force of the black hole increased greatly. With a "so" sound, Hirohito was sucked into Tang Jing's hand, and his neck was immediately grabbed by Tang Jing's big hand. The other guards looked at each other as if they had seen a ghost. They shouted, but they were afraid of breaking the vases. They did not dare to make any excessive movements. Tang Jing was like a little chick, swaggering out of the palace. The guards chased closely, but they did not dare to act rashly. They could only watch as the emperor was taken away. After passing through many palaces and walls, they came to the outermost area of the imperial palace. If they walked out, it would be a vast world, which would attract the attention of the people. At that time, when the people saw that the emperor had become a captive, it would cause a huge uproar. One could imagine the impact on the people. The emperor of a country became a captive. The confidence and dignity of the people would be severely damaged. Tang Jing knew that the death of the emperor last time was no less than a nuclear explosion to the island nation. However, after Hirohito came to power, the island nation regained its vitality and gathered together. This wolf of wealth quietly lurked on the shores of Huaxia. Once it accumulated enough power, this wolf of wealth would open its mouth, bare its fangs, and take a bite of Huaxia. How could Tang Jing give him this opportunity? So, he took advantage of this opportunity to cut off the Gordian knot and directly cut off their thoughts. He wanted to see if this heavy blow could completely destroy this nation, so that they would not dare to covet Huaxia for the time being. "Baka, stop!" Hirohito realized something and shouted in shock, trying to stop Tang Jing. However, he was on the chopping block. What could he do to stop Tang Jing? "Quickly stop him. Don't let him leave the Kokyo," Hirohito ordered hoarsely. The guards looked at each other and were about to move, trying to stop Tang Jing. Tang Jing's lips curled. He placed Hirohito in front of him and said, "Come. If you want him to die faster, I don't mind dragging a dead dog to see your people." "Hirohito, do you want to see your people alive or see them in death?" A single sentence was enough to stump Hirohito. Without a doubt, he did not want to die. He did not want to be dragged out of the Kokyo like a dead dog. He did not doubt Tang Zhang's words at all. If he said it, then he would do it. Moreover, where there is life, there is hope. As long as he did not die, then there was a chance to make a comeback. If he died, then all the chances would be gone. Hirohito was silent. Tang Jing smiled. It seems like you are a smart person. After saying this, he kicked the heavy door. With a rumble, the door collapsed. The people outside the Kokyo were immediately attracted and turned their heads to look. Two people stood in the dust. One was like a god of war, standing proudly and insufferably arrogant. The other was like a stray dog, battered and exhausted, struggling for his life. You're tuning into the Dreamy Love Stories YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.